right. Welcome to the regular Village Council meeting, October 26, 2020. It is being held tonight via Zoom, pursuant to the state law. And we call to order at 7 p.m. And Colleen, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this time?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
republic from which it stands,
one nation, under God,
and with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, Courtney, can we please have a roll call?
Price?
Here.
Butsu?
Here.
Ashman?
Here.
George?
Here.
Hayden?
Here.
Robinson?
Here.
And Skornica?
here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is item number 4, and that is the approval of our agenda.
This is Trustee Ashman. I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented. This is Butsu. Second.
Thank you. We have a
I
motion.
would like to ask for change in the agenda. I would like to.
Hold on 1 minute. We have a motion on the table by Councilman Ashman, supported by Councilman Butsu. Do we have any questions or discussion?
Yes. I have a question on that. I would like to remove item 12, unfinished business G, rules of procedure, for the following reasons. And that's because it's on the agenda, but there was no proposed alteration or amendment provided prior to the meeting, as is required under section F, miscellaneous, subsection 1, adoption amendment of rules of procedure. And I also question whether this is really prudent for us to take time and taxpayer dollars to amend our rules of procedure at this point in this meeting, considering that the election is next week and we will be seating a new council. And also in the same subsection, it says that these rules of procedure, the village council, will be placed on the agenda of the first meeting of the council following the seating of the newly elected trustees. And since it has to go up for review and adoption next month anyways, I don't see much point in making amendments or changes to it at this point until the new council is seated.
Support.
Okay, so Larry had a comment to make.
I was requesting to remove that item and I was giving my reason why.
Right, and I know, but Pat said he supports it, so we're just not right there yet.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments on that as well?
This is Trustee Ashman. We've been doing Zoom and Skype meetings for how many months now? 7, 8 months since March. And now all of a sudden we have a rules of procedure as it relates to running virtual meetings. I believe we've been following all the bullets that were put in there. So why all of a sudden do we need to do a rules of procedure when we've been doing these Zooms for the last 7 months? I guess that's the question of whoever put it on there.
I'm talking about not the adoption of electronic meeting rules and procedures, not that item, which is new business B. I'm talking about unfinished business G, rules of procedure, which is our standard rules of procedure.
Which was postponed from our meeting last month to get information. Dale was going to get information from other communities about adding the pro tem information out there. So it was postponed from last month to this month.
Yes, and I also have repeatedly requested for draft copies of the modified or changes for the rules of procedure, and I have yet to receive any draft copy of any proposed amendments or changes. And as I said, it all has to be reviewed next month anyways. So is it really worth it making changes at this point and wasting our time with it and our taxpayers' dollars?
But wouldn't that come from the personnel committee?
Would what come from the personnel committee?
The rules of procedure would not, I wouldn't think. Those are councils.
That's correct.
The question was for Dale to research information and bring that back to us, and I believe that's where we're at. Larry does make a good point. It doesn't matter, to wait a month. I don't believe it does. But this is just, at this point in fact finding, we haven't requested a change. There hasn't been a draft request, and you also have to request a month ahead. So at this point, what we requested last month, as Colleen had said, was information. If we want to address that now, if we want to wait a month to address that, that's up to council to decide.
I'll leave it up to the consensus of the rest of council if we want to leave that item in to discuss the information or not. I just wanted to raise that point.
I'd like to hear what the information is that Dale has to share then.
Oh, Dale, you're muted.
Well, I
What's that?
guess it's like at this point, we're
Right,
we're at the point of approving the agenda. So if we're going to discuss it, I think we just need to leave it on unfinished business at this point.
So the question is whether we choose to discuss it now or wait till November when it needs to be discussed at the first November meeting anyway, following the election. Those are our two questions in place. So Councilman Eschman made the motion, Councilman Butsu supported. It's their choice at this point to go through with the motion that they've made or, amend their motion. That's their choice at this point. Unless we have unless there was any other questions or comments. Okay, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I'm just going to leave my motion the way it is.
And Mark Butsu?
I'm going to leave my support as is also.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to approve the agenda as presented by Councilman Eschman, supported by Councilman Butsu. Any further questions or comments? All right, I think we're ready. Courtney, please.
Butsu,
Yes.
Ashman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Skornica,
Yes.
Bryce.
Yes,
Motion carries.
and that motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 5 is the approval of our council minutes. And these are the minutes of the regular meeting, September 28th, 2020. And as you see, there was a draft that was emailed to us, and then 2 revisions have been made. And keep in mind, when you look at the revisions, they are color coded. Dale has made 2 different colors based on 2 different recommendations. So we are looking to entertain a motion.
Make a motion. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I could make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 28th, 2020.
Trustee Hayden, support.
All right, thank you. Just keep in mind, please state your name when you go to speak, just so I know who's speaking when.
I'm the
But
only
we
other
have-
female.
We have Councilman Skornica with a motion and Councilman Hayden supporting to approve the minutes. That's as presented, correct?
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions, comments, discussions?
Yes. I'd like to make the following amendments. Page 2, the item E, the date 24th should be 27. It's the meeting of August 27th, not the 24th.
Is that D or E?
E,
E
We
says
have 20
27th.
Yeah, D is the 24th.
no, it does not. It says the minutes of special meeting August 27th, but where we get into the approval, it says the 24th. It needs to be corrected to reflect the same. And then at the top of page 2, this I think might not have been clear when Dale was doing my additions, but under acceptance items be deleted as it was not received. So instead of stricken should be struck, and deleted as it was not received. And then the spelling of my name in red, Trustee Skornica. And then will provide office misspellings, errors. That was a side note in the margin of my draft minutes that there were just miscellaneous misspellings. It's not to go there. That needs to be struck from that section.
Will you repeat that last one more time?
I am. in red, will provide office misspelling errors. That was just a side note in the margin of the draft that I submitted, so it just needs to be stricken from there because it was supplied.
Thank you.
And then under D, what needs to, we have an extra the. So the that's capitalized at the very end of the second line, that just needs to be deleted.
Actually, then you need to delete record also because it says the record and then the record again.
Correct.
So both
Yep.
words.
Yep, you're right. Yep, yep.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
Madam President, I'm having a hard time following along with the changes because I don't have those copies to put them into the minutes. So I because I don't have those copies and that's not what my draft looks like, the items that she's referring to, that Trustee Skornica is referring to, are not in my draft.
All right. Dale, did you email Courtney with that this afternoon, the latest changes? I'm sorry, you're muted.
You're muted. You're still muted.
It's not a problem. I don't need to necessarily.
I'm sorry, I did not send it to her.
Okay, would you mind doing that so she can have the correct ones?
Well, I will, but I can't right now.
Thank you.
If the village manager is going to take care of the adjustments that need to be made, that's fine. I'm just saying I'm having a hard time typing them into the minutes. So Trustee Skornica, I'm very sorry to have to do this. I got the first one. There was also a second one on page 2 that I missed.
This last group of changes, I don't have either. So somebody's going to have to get that to me.
You sent them out though, right, Dale?
I sent out to all of council what you have before you, but what you are now making changes on, I haven't been able to follow you.
Colleen, can you send those changes to Dale after the meeting so that he can capture those and forward them to Courtney?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, well, without getting on my phone, I can just forward what we received and forward it on to him, but yes, I can do that.
Well, it's fine. They need to be in the minutes is what you guys have indicated in the past that you would like those changes listed in the minutes. And so for me to list them is, I just,
no, we don't have to list them and we don't have to list them in the minutes.
I'm sorry, Courtney, go ahead. What you were saying?
They have always, I shouldn't say always, in recent minutes, they've all been listed in the minutes as changes requested. And so I'm just trying to keep up
standard practice, correct?
I started helping.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just a little bit, I'm just a little lost. I'm sorry. It's just because I don't have those changes in front of me to know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
And
that's
I
okay.
appreciate
It's
that you want
challenging
to
for all of
clarify
us.
it. I appreciate that you want to clarify it correctly. Obviously, that's our goal in the end. There were 3 different versions of the draft minutes that had come out. That is not the norm. And so therefore, we're all having trouble keeping up at this point. If anything is a grammatical or, a spelling error, anything like that is automatically given back to due. That's not something we have to approve here together. If it's any change of content and wording, that's something that we would need to do together as a council. So that's my concern is that, like I said, as anybody's reading through that there's a change of any of the wording versus a spelling or grammatical. So if we don't have
these are not grammatical. So also on page 8, the top of the page, instead of account, it's not an account, it's access. So just strike account and add access. And then under that, the 3rd paragraph, the motion by Robinson, I believe it should state, and I don't have the exact motion in front of me right now, but the 3rd line, where it starts or how, and then we have the how, that needs to be struck, and then and insert personnel committee meeting minutes. What was in question is the personnel committee meeting minutes.
Where, I'm sorry.
Page 8, the
Yes.
third paragraph, third line, where it starts our or how, and then it says the how. So that just needs to be struck. And then the personnel committee needs to be inserted before meeting.
You cannot do that. What he said was, or how the meeting minutes.
He does not say person.
Cannot change the motion. You cannot change the motion to read something that was not voted upon. And what was voted upon was, I understand the removing of the how, because that's clearly a typo, but you cannot add personnel meeting minutes when that's not what was stated.
I understand. And as I stated before I made the comment was, I don't have the motion in front of me, but I believe that it should say personnel. So I think that would need to be followed up on then.
I made
Mark, do you have
Robinson read that motion 4 times, and I know
Okay.
for a fact that it's verbatim how he read it.
So what we're deleting is the how, and that is being deleted as, again, that's a grammatical error that can be fixed.
But it's not, but my more than that, and I clarified it when I said I don't have the motion in front of me, and I deleted. So if that is not how it read, my intention is not to change the motion. I clearly stated that I didn't have it in front of me. So unless, that's been proven and 100% accurate, then that's fine. We'll leave it as that.
So we have deleted the how, as I've stated before, and that one is correct. So what is our next issue, if there are any, in the way of the minutes?
Well, page 10, where President Bryce states, the Personnel Committee does not need to have all positions appointed, to have 3 seats, blah, blah, so long as a quorum is met. Is that an accurate statement of what you said, Tanya?
That is what the minutes say without the recording. I cannot tell you word for word what was said, but this is what was accurately described through the minutes. So I can tell you that that's what I'm assuming until we watch or hear something.
Well, I would suggest that gets checked out, because you do not have a quorum when you have a subcommittee, so long as a quorum is not met. So that would need to be checked out, since you don't recall that. I would suggest that be clarified.
No, it would be met. If 2 out of 3 people are attending, that is a quorum and you can have a meeting. So that
I
wouldn't be
might
not
want
met.
to point out that, is it really appropriate for other council members to try to change different council members' statements in the meeting minutes? Because this is President Bryce stated, and if she thought something was inaccurate, I would think President Bryce would be the one who would need to ask for correction of that, not a different trustee. That's just my observation.
We're all responsible for the correction and the accuracy of the meeting minutes. And therefore, if somebody doesn't catch something else, it's like, I would think it would be our process to go through and read it, because we all don't catch the same things.
I agree. And everybody should be responsible for their own comments. I'm not about to try to change other people's comments in the meeting minutes.
About that. And then,
are there any other comments or suggestions on these minutes?
On page 11, the roll call, I just had a question about that. Did the other 2 sign off before we got the final roll call, or are those just missing?
Yes, they were already leaving, and we tried to get them back. And then I think that Courtney ended the roll call vote before they came back on to vote their ayes. I remember that distinctly.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I guess Ashman and Butsu could confirm that, since they were the ones, but that was my question. That's all.
Does anybody else have anything on the September 28th minutes that they would like, that they've noticed at all?
This is Trustee Eshman, and I apologize to go back on page 10, but when anybody refers to a quorum as it relates as to council as a whole, 7, right? And when you're saying you can meet as long as a quorum is met, it would indicate that you are having a quorum outside of council on a committee, and that's what I believe Trustee Skornica was trying to explain, the way that's worded there.
Okay, and that is an opinion. A quorum is not specifically just for council. It's for any group board that has met, and it is a majority of the people on that board.
That's correct.
Yeah, a voting board, right? But you're not voting on a committee.
Right, it's not.
No,
you cannot-
those are the
subcommittees-
words that I had stated and used in my comments, and that will stand. If anybody else has any questions or comments on the minutes, I would appreciate that you bring those forward. Was there anything else on any of the other ones, Dan?
Nope, no, I'm just trying to explain. I read it and it says a quorum and we don't meet as a quorum in committee, so
Right.
I just
And
wanted to.
They're
read it.
changing the minutes and going back and saying I did or didn't say something that I did. What I said stands, whether there's an error or not, or you'd like to talk about grammar or a definition of something is fine. You do not take out something that you stated and say it did or didn't happen. That was what was said and that will be stand in the minutes. Do we have
So you're
anything
not-
else on the minutes of September 28th that we would like to look at?
The minutes don't always capture the accuracy. That's why we review them, but we can look at it later.
I would
right.
like to point out, minutes are only supposed to reflect the general topics. As long as they're not inaccurate in intent, it does not matter if it's not exactly word for word what was said. As long as it captures the correct meaning of what was transpired. That's what minutes are for.
So we have a motion on the table by Councilman Skornica and supported by Councilman Hayden, and that was to accept the minutes as presented. Are we interested in changing that motion?
I'd like to say as amended.
And
Trustee Hayden, I support the amended motion.
thank you. Are there any further questions or discussion before we vote? All right, thank you. So, Courtney, if you don't mind, we have a motion by Councilman Skornica, supported by Councilman Hayden to accept the minutes as amended. Can we please have a roll call?
Hayden,
Yes.
Eshman, I'm sorry,
Yes.
thank you. George,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Cornica,
Yes.
Wetsu,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries 7-0. Item number 6 will be our acceptance items, and that is the treasurer's report for the month of September 2020. And item number 7 is our disbursements, and that is ending October 20th of 2020. We are looking for a motion for that.
I have a question on the treasurer's report.
So that is something, again, that when you receive your packet, you would call in and have a discussion or an email with the treasurer.
No, we can ask questions at the meeting, Tanya.
We
If
can,
she's
but it
not
wastes
here,
our
go
time
right
if
ahead.
it does
Oh my
say
God.
we should be
Well, when you
courteous to our
don't get the
staff and
packet
bring them
until
up.
after 5 o'clock on Friday, it's hard to do a call in and everything, so.
So go ahead. Like I said, she's obviously not available to answer your question, but go right ahead.
I understand that, but the office can take the note and get back with us. I was just, the miscellaneous meeting packet, I was just curious what that was about. There's nothing there, but what is that from? And then I just would like to know how much is delinquent in property taxes?
What was the first question? Miscellaneous.
Just ask, how much is delinquent in property taxes?
Okay.
And again, in order to be prepared for the meetings, that's something that you would ask the treasurer
Tanya,
and
it's
you
just
look at her
Tanya.
report.
I can get back with us. I'm not.
We are
it's
on
fine.
disbursements, which is ending in October 2020. Do we have anybody who would like to entertain a motion?
I don't think, what was the end result for trustee Skornica's request? You just blew right through that, and I have no idea what the end result was.
The end result is Dale will gather that information in which we are supposed to find out from the treasurer, and we have questions for the treasurer, not waste time and money from our taxpayers to discuss things that should be discussed already.
If I may make a comment, if you have an item in acceptance items that you wish to discuss, you're supposed to request to remove that from acceptance items so it can be discussed independently. Acceptance items are items that just are accepted without discussion. So you're supposed to request to remove that item from acceptance items before you discuss it.
This is Beth Voorhees, and I can answer those questions.
Great, thanks, Beth.
The miscellaneous packets, the last treasurer's report, we had people that wanted a packet and we charged for it.
Okay,
I just left that there. There was nothing this month.
okay,
And for our just delinquent taxes, we have almost like $14,660 left to collect. So we've collected like 96% of our taxes.
thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Beth, for stepping in. Again, we are on number 7, which is our disbursements, and we are looking for a motion for that.
I'd like to make a motion. This is Trustee Eshman, I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion that we pay our disbursements from September 30th through October 20th for a total of $34,084.88.
Trustee Hayden, support.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table by Councilman Eshman, supported by Councilman Hayden. Do we have any questions, comments, discussions?
I have a question on number 1, the sign supplies. What sign supplies are those for?
There was, we had some posts or, posts, I think, and perhaps some hardware for our, that we used for our park signs.
Okay,
Preservation.
Yes.
okay, okay. It's not for those other signs that were posted? Okay,
That was no, if you're talking about the signs that are at the corner of Mill and the corner of South, those were all paid privately.
okay. Yeah, that'll come up later in the meeting. And then I have a question on number 23. What are we having storage rental units for?
Storage rental unit is for items that are through the DDA or Amos. Some of the materials that they have for the different events within the village, we were storing them outside or in partially in the DPW building, but we ran out of space to do it, and so we got the storage unit so that we could store them inside safely.
So are those items reimbursed by DDA or Friends of Amos?
They're and not at this point, no. Before we were storing them at storing them where we were storing them at no cost to them, and so this was just an extension of that.
But now it costs us money.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that something that we should look into for reimbursement from those two entities since it's their materials?
We can talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, because we weren't.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not in our budget. We weren't expecting that. So since it's their items, I think they should be responsible for that.
Or we can take it out of their TIF taxes.
No.
Well, wherever I think that needs to be their expense, not ours.
I agree.
And then
Now I'm sorry, this is Butsu on the same number 23. Is that 407? Is that a monthly, bi-monthly,
Monthly.
yearly? That's monthly?
Yes.
Well, it says September, October.
Well, and that may be 2 months at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we should understand what that means, though. We're guessing what September/October means. Is it September through October, or is it, we should understand what that means. And that's a lot of money if it's a monthly. Even if it's $200, it's still over $2,000 a year, $2,400 a year.
This is Trustee Hayden. I would also if we're going to follow up on this topic, and I would also check to see whether we could use a local business like the Ortonville mini
There
storage.
was none
place.
available. This was
Okay,
the
so that
only
was
space-
already checked.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Dale.
Dale, I got to ask you then, what specifically went in these storage units that we did not previously store elsewhere?
Well, I don't think there's anything that we didn't store, although there may have been some miscellaneous items from DPW that we put there as well. But for the most part, it was the materials that the Friends of Amos stored at the DPW garage or outside of the DPW garage, and they were being destroyed by doing that. And so Bob found this location where we could have inside storage and brought it to me, and I approved it.
I don't know, it seems like a lot of money to be paying when we could have probably just put a tarp over whatever it is you're storing. So if they were outside at one point, I don't know what was outside there. And that's what I was asking. What is it that was stored outside that's getting ruined?
I can't tell you the specific things that were involved with it, but they are items that were used in events downtown.
Okay. All right.
So thank you, Dale, for looking into that. Are there any other questions on the disbursements at this time?
I'm just confirming item line 37. The date says August 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a correct date since we're looking at September and October reimbursements? Is that August 25th date correct?
I believe it is, yes. It was an invoice that got misplaced in the office, and when we found it among the clerk's items.
Okay.
Well, this is Trustee Yesman. Before we put this to a vote, Dale, could you please get the details around item 23, the mini storage? So for us to understand in detail what that really means, and what is it that's now being stored there that was not being stored before?
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on the disbursements? All right.
If this is
Courtney?
if this is approved based on that 40734, with the understanding that we'll get reimbursed from DDA, is that a fair statement, do you think, Dale?
I don't think it's a fair statement that it's being based on the fact that we'll be reimbursed. I am going to talk. I've already had conversation with the director about that issue, but I will have it again because I don't think we got to a conclusion.
And if we did not ask that and we chose to make that change, that's not something we can ask somebody else to previously. In the future, we could ask, or we could bring the items back. But if we chose to do that, we can't go asking somebody else to do that and assume that
This
that's
is Trustee
going to get paid.
Robinson. This is Trustee Robinson. I guess the question would, come up that why wasn't this addressed to council to make council aware that these added expenses were going to be in place beforehand?
Because it's under the approved amount in which the manager can spend. So we trust him to make decisions in the office. That's why we hired him. So if it's something we have a question on, we ask him to please bring that information back to us. He provides that to us and we decide and evaluate from there.
This is Trustee Hayden. This whole discussion should be added for an agenda item on next month's meeting, because what we're just trying to do right now is pay our bills. And it's good that we found this point that probably needs clarification and should be discussed, but I think it's not appropriate to just continue discussing now. We should do that once we have more information at the next meeting.
Do we have any other questions or comments on the disbursements at this time? All right, Courtney, I believe we're ready for a roll call. The motion was put on the table by Councilman Eschman, supported by Councilman Hayden, to pay our disbursements ending October 2020.
I have in the amount of $34,084.88.
Please.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Cornica,
Yes.
Watsu,
Yes.
Eshman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up on our agenda is item 8, and that will be public comments. And at this time, it is on agenda items only. So if you see something on the agenda that you would like to share with us, discuss, give us your thoughts, comments on, you're more than welcome to do that. We will take them one at a time. You are able to just take a turn, unmute, as, like I said, share your information. You're also able to enter it into the chat at any time as well, and I can read those one by one. Just keep in mind it's agenda items only, and you do have a limit of 3 minutes per person for the public to speak at this time. So please go ahead if you have something and step up and share with us. All right, we do have a comment coming in the chat, and that was Melanie Eifeld. She's questioning why are we correcting the minutes, spelling and grammar, etc. Read the materials and call the office before the meeting, please. The amount of time spent on minutes is ridiculous. Also, the packets do not contain all the pages or backup information when it's given to the public. So I can say I apologize, we apologize if there are missing pages. Obviously, that's not the intent. Please let us know and we can get those pages to you that are missing.
Yeah, because if that was brought up ahead of time, we could have made sure that was all set before the meeting. And
so this is public comment at this time. And Melanie, I thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else in the public on an agenda item that would like to speak with us? More than welcome to unmute, raise your hand, mention it in the chat, whatever you choose at this time.
I see another comment came in the chat.
Yes. Yep. All right, and what we have is a comment from Mary Ellen Spradlin, and she mentioned that she had sent a letter and an email regarding the easement request of her property, and she's asking, is that part of the Crosman Park drain? And Dale, I will let you answer that one.
Well, it depends on how far the council goes in their discussion. I have given information to council with regard to our attempts to obtain easements. But there isn't a great deal of detail on it at this point because we're still in discussion with several individuals.
So this was a question from somebody who received the letter, and she's clarifying that the easement is part of the park. Let me say it again. The Crosman Park Drain Project. That's correct?
It is, but it's. I don't want to mislead the citizen to think that there is going to be an extended discussion about her particular easement or any other particular easement.
Okay, correct.
So there's alternatives is what Dale's trying to say.
All right, do we have any other public comment at this time on agenda items only, please? All right. I am not seeing anybody chime in. If you do, you still have time to put something in there and we'll grab it. I thank you for those that did get a chance to speak with us. And as a reminder, there is a public comment items on area on non-agenda items coming up as well. So keep that in mind. Thank you. All right, item number 9 is our consent agenda, of which we have nothing this evening. And item number 10 will be our trustee committee updates. And Mark Butsu, can we please start with you?
The Fire Authority Board did not meet this last month, so there's no updates from there. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Pat?
Just very quickly, I think the big thing is on Halloween Saturday, Parks and Rec is hosting the movie Transylvania Hotel at Sheridan Park, and that should be fun. That's all I got.
Thank you. And how about Councilman Hayden?
Planning Commission did not meet, so I have no updates.
All right, thank you. Next up is Dan.
Any items that I have on the streets and drains will be covered by from Dale, our village manager. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Mark Robinson.
Hey, wayfinding met last Monday, and we had previously decided to go with the company Digital Alliance. And so Curtis Jackson is the one heading that up with that company. He sat down with all of us on wayfinding, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion, but basically it was by his suggestion that we're going to do a Survey Monkey, and we're going to send it out to everyone within the village of Ortonville as far as a mail-in, and then there will be other opportunities like through our websites and all that to be able to reach out to other people outside the community for their input. And it was also decided that we're going to separate the two just so we know what the village residents are doing, since wayfinding is working with the DDA and it's for the village. But then there's also a suggestion that we reach out again to the township, as we did about it last year, and to Jason Rumble, and I was in communication with him as well. And he said that when he gets on board and fills his position, that he's going to reach out to the rest of the township council and to see if they're wanting to jump on with us as well to do a wayfinding project. So that's where we stand right now, and that's it.
Excellent, thank you. And Colleen.
Historical Society did not meet. They're closed for the winter. And the IT, the Personnel Committee email investigation, after discussion with Dale and the attorney, has been determined that we will forward the emails to the attorney for review due to some of those inappropriateness and handling, and to be sure that everything that can be posted and distributed and attached to the meeting minutes will be okay to produce, and they will be entered into the minutes. We are calling for a special meeting. Dale will do a special meeting for Wednesday regarding this, and all that will be coming, I guess, tomorrow morning sometime, I'm assuming, Dale. But the attorney requested to see the emails before publication and distribution.
All right, thank you.
And just one thing, I guess I can bring it up now. It's under new, I'll bring it up when we talk about it under new business,
So you're all set?
Yep, we look forward to handling this email investigation on Wednesday.
Great, thank you. Next up is item number 11, and that will be our new business. First item is an IGD email invoice, and I will turn that over to Dale.
I provided you with a copy of an invoice that I received from IGD Solutions for email archiving, and I have had nothing I did not request this from IGD Solutions, and I had nothing from the council to make that recommendation. And so I brought it to you. If it's going to be paid, it needs to be approved by the council.
So
why isn't this in this is Trustee Eshman, why wouldn't this be in our expenses? So for disbursements, or that's for October though. Oh, it would have been covered in their disbursement.
This was only if it was paid. It wasn't paid, he said.
No, it wasn't paid because when it came to me, I called IGD Solutions and I said, "What is this? I have not requested what this calls for, and I have no idea where it was." And they said they had received a request from one of the trustees to do this, and then that's why they were billing it.
Right. So this was during the research of the emails, it was discovered that the email archiving does not archive as long as we need it to. And therefore, they said that there would be additional billing for that. Since council had went ahead and approved up to $500 for this research and was coming to council, I went ahead and told them to put that on there for the archiving for October. They do bill in advance for November. We can discuss it, but it was all discovered during this email investigation that the email archiving needs to go back further than what it currently does. So based on that, they sent this invoice out.
Excuse me, Colleen, did you bring this discrepancy or shortfall to the attention of the full IT committee and had the IT committee make the decision, or did you just make the decision unilaterally on your own for the IT committee?
It was a phone conversation with IT because they called me and I was at my home. So because the email archiving didn't fulfill what we needed it to do. So,
but in my opinion, if this is related to the IT investigation, as you state, it should have been handled by the IT committee, not by one council member individually. That's inappropriate.
Council authorized the spending up to $500. Email archiving was discovered during this process. This is not part of the investigation for the emails. This was discovered because it didn't retain as much as it needed to. So because it was up to 500, you discuss it. You don't want to archive it, then you clearly don't archive it. You do away with it. But that's as simple as that. We're here to discuss about this bill for $40 for archiving to have the appropriate email archiving. So
I would like to ask President Price, can I ask for a clarification? I understand and I know for a fact the village manager has a spending limit he is authorized to approve for expenditures.
Right.
Do individual trustees have expenditure limits that they can authorize payments on behalf of the village other than
Absolutely
getting council
not.
approval?
I didn't.
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
that's where I believe it is inappropriate. No trustee should be making any decision on payment or obligating the village for any expenditure without the approval of council or bring it to the village manager and allowing him to use his authority for that.
Council did approve.
So
We did not
IT
approve changing our email contract. We improved expenditures for an investigation that is supposed to be handled by the IT committee, not an individual trustee. I have serious problems with how this was handled.
So the IT committee consists of the 3 office staff and a trustee as well. None of this 3 office staff were aware of this. None of the 3 office staff attended a meeting. This was not done by the IT committee in any way, shape, or form. As Larry mentioned, that's a huge concern. The IT committee is a group of people that make a decision together. And when our office staff who would then make these changes and are authorized to make these changes have not made them, that is a very large concern. And if this council isn't concerned, there's a problem.
Well, if the council isn't concerned that we have inappropriate emails going on and the lack of that, we have to have the attorney review the emails.
So the conversation is of a purchase that was made.
Don't interrupt me.
The conversation is of a purchase that was made. We are not talking about an IT investigation at any point, which you have stated 3 times. A purchase was made unauthorized by an unauthorized individual. The council needs all of the information before they decide to approve it. That is what the conversation is about. An IT committee is put in place to decide what is best for our IT of our office.
Right.
The IT committee was unaware of a purchase. Now we need to decide whether we're going to approve this purchase. That is what we're talking about. That's on our agenda.
The IT committee consists of the same people or persons that the investigation is about and or staff that it would relate to their peers. So to get into certain aspects of that, it doesn't make any sense to have somebody that is being investigated to provide input to that, as well as staff member, although I did have a discussion with a staff member, and I don't recall if this was, I'd have to look at my notes because I have that for Wednesday. But
So
to
again,
discuss
this is
about the email.
different. We're not talking about an investigation. We're talking about a purchase that was made. An investigation is done externally and does not involve any of our employees nor our trustees.
And,
That
and
is
this
again
is
what
trustee
we
Hayden.
can we go
You
ahead and
also-
vote on this?
Right, this is.
We are
yeah.
having a discussion on it and everybody is welcome to have that discussion.
This
But
is
we
trustee
seem to
Hayden.
keep-
Before we
Colleen,
have a
you
discussion,
yourself
no, wait,
stated this
before-
is not
before-
related to the IT investigation, but was
before we
uncovered
have
in
a
the
discussion,
course
there's
of
not
the
even a motion
investigation.
on the table. So
I
this
can't hear two
discussion-
people at the same time. It's a simple discussion brought forth. You have a memo, and the question was, how is this purchase made, and does this fall under the correct way in which we make a purchase and who's responsible for it?
But don't we normally have discussion after we have a motion? Isn't that what you always say? So
The
there's not a
question
motion.
is a discussion on it. There is no motion at this point
I
requested.
know there's not. I know there's not. So before we have a discussion, we typically have a motion.
There is no
before, and that's why-
request for a motion in this memorandum. The question is, can we please see how this came about and if this is something that should be paid? We don't need to make a motion to make a payment. That would be done in the office. If this is something that we feel is a payment that we will make.
So this is trustee Eshman, taking the emotion out of it. So I heard two things. It was discovered through the investigation phase. I also heard that it was an extension outside of the investigation. And then thirdly, I also heard that we approved $500 worth of expenses. Of the $500, how much of that have you spent on the investigation thus far?
That has
Nothing.
nothing to do with an invoice that was received, whether the purchase was approved or not to be made by our office staff and procedures on purchasing. That is the discussion on our
President
agenda.
Bryce, you made yourself clear about 10 times of what your views are about this. So what are we going to do moving
It's not a
forward?
view. We must stick to the agenda item, and that is what we're trying to do here.
You're trying to
Okay,
twist.
so this is trustee Eshman. I'd like to make a motion that we pay the balance due of $80 as presented by Dale in his memorandum dated October 20th, 2019.
This is trustee Robinson's support.
Now that there's a motion, I'd like to have some discussion.
More discussion?
I just want to make it clear that this item, if it really is that we do not have adequate email archiving for the purposes of our requirements, legal requirements as a village, then I'm okay with paying it. I would like to say, though, that it was still inappropriate, regardless of what comes out of an IT investigation. This was a topic that is outside of the scope of the IT investigation and still should have brought to the normal IT committee or village council.
This is trustee Eshman. What is required from an archive standpoint, period? Let's just set the IT investigation aside for a minute. What is the recommended archive time requirements?
I don't
Dale,
think
do you
there's-
have any
No,
suggestions on that?
that subject has not been raised by me or to me with regard to IGD.
So this is trustee Eshman again, and I'm gonna ask this to trustee Hayden, because trustee Hayden, I do trust your knowledge in IT and respect it. And what we're talking about is a difference of 2 weeks. Do you think a 2-week archive is adequate for IT archiving?
Well, trustee Eshman, I have to respond from my IT knowledge. It varies based upon your company, the type of business you are, what sort of legal requirements you may have. I know my own company, for example, they have a requirement that people are required to delete emails older than 1 year. I do not know how long the archiving policies typically are, but I know when I was handling our backups, IT archiving was to delete any archives that exceeded that 1 year limit. But that was a company policy. A lot of companies do not like to retain emails for legal purposes because there's a lot of things can be, as you've seen from investigations, when emails are around, there's a lot of stuff that can come out. So many companies do not want to retain emails for very long. I don't know what would be appropriate for a government body. That might be a better question for either Dale or to follow up on, or maybe even put to the village attorney if need be.
This is Trustee Butsu, and since Dale is there, Dale, do you have any input as far as governmental goes for what we're talking about?
Well, I think if we only had 2 weeks of archiving for our emails, I think that's woefully inadequate. And we should have something longer than that just for research purposes.
Just
I
maybe
would
the council
agree.
wants our office to look into that. We would have to look into that. I don't have the answer right now, but I can look into that for the council if you'd like us to. That's up to the council.
Well, what I would
this is
like
Trustee
to,
Robinson, we should at least have more than a couple weeks, right? I mean, like Larry said, a good year or whatever. But because we're a government entity like that, I mean, you have to be able to go back on your records and all that. So, I mean, I'm not speaking for Trustee Skornica, but I would believe that more than 2 weeks, and that's why she probably made that decision to say, yes, we need more than 2 weeks.
Well,
This is
considering
Trustee
that-
Hayden. I would like to ask Trustee Skornick, how long was the previous archiving period, and what's the new archiving retention period based upon this change?
the archiving, it goes back, they back it up. It's like it's longer than a year. So with this change,
But
And what was it
what was it
previously?
prior?
it was about 2 weeks.
What? Oh my God.
Wow.
what I would like to do is request that the IT committee investigates this. What was the appropriate coverage that we should have? We obviously don't want to overpay. It's like insurance. We want to make sure that we are covered. And I also would like them to investigate which accounts it's appropriate for. We have 9 accounts. Not even all of them are used, yet we're paying for them to be archived when they're not even a used email account. So I would like to request, please, that that's something that goes before the IT committee and that is done and prepared for us for the November meeting, please.
As far as now, we do have a motion to at least approve the.
Correct. And therefore, I'm
current
having a
profile.
conversation about that motion. In order to approve it, I would like to request that further information before we pay next month and the month after that on a bill that
Okay.
may or may not be appropriate.
Yeah, and this is Trustee Hayden. This is one supplemental piece of information for Dan's earlier question to me. There is a difference between backups and archive. Backups typically are no longer than a few weeks. That is pretty typical of a backup, which means that if you lose your database, you can recover it from any point in time up to 2 weeks prior. Archiving is a different matter. That's saying how long do we retain them, which means that even if somebody deletes it, you still have the old copies on hand to recover. So I think it needs to be clear if this is a backup or an archive policy also.
Archive. And also keep in mind that due to the emails going on and it was a current environment, emails needed to be snapshotted at the time. So for the council to make a decision to do that, because it was a real-time thing, if there's active emails going on, they needed to be snapshotted to be archived. So
I would think,
Any other-
especially as it relates to us, this is Trustee Eshman, especially as it relates to the village going through a transition with our clerk. And it makes perfect sense that, longer than 2 weeks archive is warranted. So that's the reason why I made the motion to pay this bill. And I agree that we should further investigate how many accounts is that associated for, and do we need all those accounts covered if half of them or a portion of them aren't being used. So I agree with that further investigation beyond this for next meeting.
So any other questions or comments on this current invoice? All right, thank you. We have a motion on the table by Councilman Eshman, supported by Councilman Robinson. I believe we are ready for a roll call, please, Courtney.
Let me, Trustee George here. Before we do that, I just want to get clarification. The bottom line is, you billed us for these services. Is that correct? If they did it, then we should just pay it. It's not that material of amount, the way I look at it. So if,
I think that's right.
whether we think it's right or not, the fact of the matter is, did they provide those services? And if they did, just pay them.
Well, they could
That's
only
what you
turn
get
it
to
on
do.
based on, they only turned it on based on the activity that they found. It was like like I said, it was real time, and we needed to capture emails that were going on even as of that time. So they had to turn it on then. And it was small.
This is for the months of October and November is what the
Right.
bill is for.
I know. I know.
But they did provide services. Is that correct?
Well, they backed up everything beginning October,
So they
yes.
did provide services, and that's
For
fine. I
October.
have no problem with that.
They
Yes.
haven't done it for November yet, because we haven't reached November. So we're only looking at $40 right now that they are doing.
All right, that's fine.
Well, if we're paying the bill, we're paying for November, correct? The discussion is to pay the bill in full. That is November.
Yeah, that's on.
Correct. That was
Just
my motion.
clarify.
All right, thank you. Anything else from anybody? Questions, comments? I believe we're ready now, Courtney.
Just to make sure I've got it correct, Trustee Eshman, I have a motion by Eshman, seconded by Robinson to pay the balance of $80 as presented by Village Manager Stewart in the memorandum.
Is that correct, Ann?
Yeah, correct. If we want to be detailed, I apologize for leaving it out, but if you can add IGD Solutions invoice totaling $80, I apologize for leaving that out.
Yeah.
This is
And
Trustee
Mark, you're fine with
Robinson.
that?
I also again support with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have to pay the IGD Solutions invoice balance of $80 as presented by Village Manager Stewart in the memorandum.
Yep, dated October 20th, I believe. Yep.
Yes, that's what it was.
Thank you. Robinson,
Yes.
Fornica,
Yes.
Butsu,
Yes.
Ashman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
and Bryce.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up is item B, and this is the adoption of the electronic meeting rules and procedures. And this again is Dale.
This is a document that we received, a form from our law firm. Recently in the state legislature passed an act to codify electronic meetings rules and procedures. And part of that legislation required that each municipality adopt some type of form pursuant to Public Act 228 of 2020. And what's contained in this electronic meeting rules are those items that the statute requires so that we will be in compliance to hold meetings like we are right now.
But we don't have to meet virtually anymore. So why are we still meeting virtually? I mean, we don't have to do that.
Because the COVID-19 pandemic is still in full force in the state of Michigan, with more cases and more instances occurring on a regular basis. And it's my judgment that at this point in time, it's still not safe for us to have a public meeting.
And even if we do, this is in place, period. So we can always go back to it if there's any other reason. We could have the building that we meet in burned down, and it gives you the ability to meet in public. Electronically. So it covers our bases, period.
I guess it's like, I'm just, because we've talked about this for a few months, that to not meet virtually, to have the expense virtually, why we're still doing Zoom meetings when we can safely be socially distanced in the old town hall and have the public being able to have a call-in number.
So the agenda item is the electronic meeting rules and procedures in
I
general,
know.
not specifically discussing whether we do or don't meet or when we should or shouldn't meet. We have to stay on topic.
So this is Trustee Eshman. I got to ask. So we had our attorney draft this rules of procedure here, and who requested the attorney to draft this? Because typically, wouldn't the council or personnel draft a rules of procedure for this?
This is something that came out of the Public Act that I cited to you earlier, and the specifics that were required from that, and the advice that we received from the Michigan Municipal League was that we should have contact with our attorneys to give us the language that was required by the statute so that we would be legal to hold these meetings. It happens that this was an item, I believe that our attorney and their law firm had prepared a document for a number of their clients. This is not something that I specifically requested of them separately. It was provided to me in a memo, a letter from him, an email, I believe. And that's what, and I brought it to you the first chance I had.
Well, in these are what came out of the meeting from last Monday. This was just put into place on the state level. Do we have any questions or discussions or comments on the adoption of the electronic meeting rules and procedure?
So this is Trustee Eshman. One last question then. Of the rules and procedures, are there anything in these rules and procedures that we did not follow since we've gone to Skype or Zoom meetings?
No. There is no. The things that this provides are things that follow what the Public Act required, including when you could have a Zoom type meeting, and when officials of the public bodies could be absent and what reason that they had to give for being absent. There are some requirements that now are part of this electric meeting rules that were not part of the governor's edicts. And so, for instance, when one of the items that's required after the adoption of this is that individual council members who are not meeting together in one place have to indicate on the record where they are, where they are meeting from. I'm not sure if there's any other item in there or not, but it tells the rest of what needs to be done. We've been doing all along.
This is Trustee Hayden. I've read the legislation that was passed, and I've looked through these, and they look consistent with what was passed by the state, and therefore I make a motion to adopt the electronic meeting rules and procedures as presented.
This is Trustee Butsu. I support that.
So these will also be amended into our rules of procedure going forward as well then, right?
I think,
We have a
are
motion
these
on the
amended
table.
or these are
Hold
just
on.
separate? This is a separate set of procedures, is it not?
Hold on
Yeah.
a minute. We have a motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Butsu. Now, do we have comments or discussion?
Just want to be sure that this is also put into our rules of procedure as well, that it's covered at both bases.
I believe at this point, this is just a separate standalone rules and procedures would be my understanding, unless
No,
at the next
we would-
meeting, the newly seated council chooses to incorporate this into the rules and procedures. That would be my guess.
That's my comment.
Do we have any other? Go right ahead.
I'm sorry, yeah. So I guess my point, there's a lot of legislation out there that we don't have rules and procedures for. So really, when I read rules of procedures, we're putting these in our rules of procedures because there are many legislations that we don't have rules of procedures for every single one of them, certainly, right? So when I read this and it said rules of procedures, I thought we were adopting this into our rules of procedures.
We should be putting it in two places because our rules of procedure do identify how we handle and construct our meetings, whether virtual or virtual. So this needs to be put in, and then we can do this now.
Colleen, we can't hear you. I'm
We're having a
sorry.
hard time hearing you, Colleen.
Could you repeat it?
This needs to be put into our rules of procedure because our rules of procedure discusses how we're able to hold meetings. And this, since now this is giving authorization for us to hold virtual meetings, it just needs to be adopted in that.
This is Trustee Hayden. Colleen, I agree with that. It should be incorporated into our normal standard rules of procedures. This specific one is because it is a direct requirement of the new legislation that is passed, and therefore we need to adopt something to be compliant with the new legislation.
It doesn't.
I
really-
do agree that maybe when it gets reviewed after the new council is seated, that this should be one of the pieces that should be just incorporated right into our full rules of procedures.
Why
As
can't
a
we-
reminder, we can't make changes to the rules and procedures without stating that we are the month ahead. So if we would like to put this onto the November agenda to be added, we're more than welcome to. But we must follow the regulations, and we cannot change or amend them without stating that we will the month before.
So this is Trustee Eshman. I would like to recommend that we do put this on as unfinished business and maybe bring it up, and definitely bring it up, so that it's not lost in the shuffle with everything that will be going on come the November timeframe, at end of November. So it doesn't get lost. I think we need to make it a point that it is on the agenda for our November's meeting.
Yeah, and this is Trustee Hayden, as always, is already in our current rules of procedure. The rules of procedure should always be on the agenda at the first meeting following the seating of the new council.
Correct. So that would kind of be two different things if this would
You don't wait for a
continue.
year. You don't wait for a year to change something if we know something's out there. So since this was since this is out there and this is the way to do it, anything for November meeting should include this rules of procedure. So we just need to
Correct.
take the proper steps to get it changed.
And we can do that in the November meeting. You're right.
All right,
Perfect.
are there any other questions or comments on the adoption of the electronic meetings, rules and procedures before we vote on that? All right, thank you. We have a motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Butsu. And Courtney, could we please have a roll call vote on that?
Warnica,
Who?
you?
Yes.
Yes, Trustee Warnica, yes. Butsu,
Yes.
Ashman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
and Robinson,
Yes.
and Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries 7-0. Next up on our agenda is item number 12. That will be our unfinished business. The first item is Crosman Park bids. And we will send that over to Dale, please.
When we last approved at our last meeting, the Norm Ferguson excavating bid in the amount of $204,925 to resolve the drainage problems in Crossman Park. What we did not yet have from them was the cost to move the drain back into the park away from the commercial properties along Mill Street to accommodate the necessity of them making septic improvements on their property. We got that figure after the last meeting, and it is an amount of approximately $8,900 more than was approved on September 28th. The new final proposal is $213,914, and our engineers have said that based on the additional work and the additional pipe and other things that have to be accomplished, he thought that that was a very reasonable price. We also had indicated at the last discussion that we had dewatering expense that we knew we had coming, but we didn't know what it was going to be. In the meantime, we have received a proposal from Norm Ferguson's firm for a subcontractor of his who will do the dewatering for the flat sum of $49,500. So those two items are items that need to be approved so that we have the proper number to start from to pay for this expense. The other thing that I need to bring to the attention of council, however, is that we have 4 or 5 easements that we have to have in place in order to construct this drainage projects that we have before us. We have currently received two of the easements that we need. We currently have 2 that we have not received yet, and three that we haven't received yet. One of the easement requests that we made has a significant number of contingencies to granting the easement, so much so that we looked at making an alternative route for the drainage project. And in a change of direction, two individuals who we need easements from are looking at it, looking at the potential. They have not told us one way or the other what they're going to do, except that one of the easement owners has indicated to us that they will not grant the easement without a cash payment to them.
Dale, which one is that? Can you let us know that or no?
Well, I'm trying to be a little cautious in this discussion
Okay.
because we're still in the middle of negotiations. I don't want to talk about the dollar amounts, and I'm at odds on how to approach it because I obviously need your authority if I'm going to approve that. But it kind of hurts our negotiations, not only with the one who we have a dollar figure from, but from two others that we have no dollar figure from, who, if they hear a number, may decide that they should get paid too. So I've been attempting without having any specific authority from you. I've been talking to these people with the idea of what it might be, what's the least that they consider, and that negotiation hasn't gone real well.
Sounds like extortion to me.
Well, I would be hesitant to say something like that, but it certainly is a view. Anytime you ask somebody for something, you have the potential that they're going to figure out something that they need back from you, and that's fine. I mean, and small things, and I've indicated to the people that for cleanup and other things that we will make sure that their property looks better and is better than it was before the easement went in. We've tried to be very open and honest as to what effect the easement will have on their property and what they can do with their property. We're not trying to hide anything or say it's better than it is. And through all of that, some of these owners, some of the rationale for why there should be some compensation isn't necessarily, well, I don't think that it's a connection, tying two things together that should be tied together. However, when one person has the absolute right to say yes or no, you have to listen to anything that's put to you.
So this is Trustee Eshman. I have two questions in that front then. How much is the worst case of what is being asked of us from a monetary standpoint, the way it is today? And is there an alternative around that person or that property owner's property as well?
Okay, two things. The one easement that has had a number of contingencies to granting. Most of what's in there, the concern was that some of the requests were pretty open-ended, and they were the kind of things that I wouldn't be comfortable in recommending to you that we make a assertion to the property owner that we would do or not do a specific thing, or that the actions that we take would absolutely, in a guarantee method, give a certain result.
This is Trustee Robinson. Dale, would this be appropriate at this time for council to have a closed session to be able to discuss a little bit more in detail the situation because of the finances and what you're bringing forward to council? I mean, is this something we could authorize a closed session meeting about, or what?
I would defer to our attorney. I don't know if this is a subject that the Open Meetings Act allows us to have a closed session on or not. I don't know if Mr. Mooney is in a position to respond to that, or if we'd have to wait for Mr. Gildner.
I would take a look at that. I apologize, but I don't on top of my head know if that's an issue, but I'd be happy to tomorrow get back to you on that, Dale, if that's okay.
I think, Trustee Robinson, I think that we should investigate that because as you can tell in what I'm saying to you,
Yes.
I'm trying to be very cautious. I don't want to.
I think that enough has been
embarrass-
said at this point, Dale. I agree with you. I think right now we should find out if we could pursue it in another way. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
And I
Well,
think we should just let this go right now.
If that's the
so-
case, then maybe we can just add that to the special meeting on Wednesday then, because then we can take care of this park issue.
We are able to discuss the monetary amounts of a piece of property in closed session. We are not able to discuss anything else besides that.
Well, yeah, I
So-
think everybody knows that. You know what I mean? But
So we would have to have a regular meeting, a public meeting, and then we could go into closed session to decide an amount that we would choose to, but nothing else can be according to our general law. We can't have those discussions in a closed session.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's correct, President Bryce. I would ask that we have our attorney opine
Absolutely.
on that specific question because so many of these things are tied to different portions of the event. And I think we should defer to the attorney for it.
And I'm saying if we have to have the amount of time in order to find that out, we can't have that ready by a closed meeting. If we have to have an open meeting for that, that's what I was stating time-wise.
What?
There would not be enough time in order to do that, for them to give us the information back tomorrow and give us an opinion, and then us to schedule a meeting. We couldn't have that meeting scheduled in time.
well,
That's
So
what I'm
this is-
stating.
yeah, but we would have
We
till
only
noon
need
to
18
schedule a
hours.
meeting.
Sure there
Yeah.
is.
Okay,
So this
we
is
have till
so
noon
this is
tomorrow to
trustee
schedule a
Ashman.
meeting from information we haven't received from an attorney yet. That's fine.
But they're
So
already
this is
aware
trustee-
of our ask right now. So I would think that, first thing in the morning, they would be able to let us know something.
Okay. Just bringing
So
that
this
up,
is
that that is a time
The
issue.
only thing we need to pay attention to is, and you all kind of need to look at your calendars. If for some reason we can't have it done by Wednesday for both the discussions, if we're going to have a closed session, should be there. The discussion on the IT discussion does not have to be enclosed. However,
Yeah. It's okay.
However, I would think that it would make sense for us to hold both of those meetings on the
Yes.
same evening. And so
Right.
I would prefer to find out tomorrow what I can about this.
Yep.
And then I'll get to all of you as to whether we'll meet Wednesday or say Thursday.
Okay. Works for me.
So this is trustee Eshman. I asked you two questions, Dale, and I didn't get the answers to them. I
Okay.
know there's an alternative for one property, all right? And then there's another, is there an alternative for going around the properties that are asking us for a monetary settlement to go in that easement? So is there an alternative to that route? And then if we were to prove a monetary amount today to settle that, how much would you ask from us to do that?
Well, because I don't know what the cost of one of them could be, and I don't have any inkling from another source, the only source that I have somewhat of a suggestion on, and if you insist that I say it to you, I will, but I would prefer
No,
not to say
I
it
prefer you
publicly
did not,
at
Dale.
this point to say what that number is. But the second part of your question was, is there an alternative route? Yes, there is. There are other routes that we could follow that would not require one of the easements that is in question. How much more it would cost us to go the other direction, I have no idea, except that I know that all of the engineering that we have done to not all of it, a significant amount of additional engineering would be required in order to go the alternative route.
And then I'm assuming that this is Trustee Hayden, I'm assuming that then the current bids would also have to be revised to include any route changes.
Well, I think at this point in time, if we were to make so drastic a change as to completely change the route, I would guess that our attorneys would say to you, and I would say to you, I think we'd have to rebid it. Because it would be,
So when you're talking about-
it's not something where we could just go and negotiate with one of the bidders.
So the significant engineering change would have to do with the actual field itself. So where we dig up that field, that's where the engineering change would occur. Is that a true statement?
To some extent. What if, as I understand, our potential other scope would be to make to move it from. There would be a lot more invasion into the public street, Mill Street, in any alternative route that we followed. And that, of course, would include significant road work and other items that we would have to get pricing on. So my guess is that there would be additional money. Now, again, if we're able to have this in closed session, I would be much more comfortable letting you hear all of it. And then, because there are like if you do this, it costs this, and you do this. If you do this, you do this, and not this. So, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made.
Okay, so Trustee Eshman, this is one last question though. How long have you been negotiating with the property owners? So one, there's an alternative. You've identified that. Another, there's no alternative because of the monetary ask of us, from them, of us. And so how long have you been negotiating that settlement?
Well, I have been dealing with these easements and approaching the different property owners with the easements for 6 weeks or more at this point. When I finally got from the attorney and from the engineers the specific legal descriptions that I needed to and drawings so that we could meet, and then to locate the property owners in question. One of them particularly, I'm still not sure how we found them, but we did.
This is Trustee Hayden. I make a motion to postpone the item Crossman Park bids until we can get more information from our village manager and attorney on this item and add it to the proposed special meeting later this week.
Trustee Eshman, support.
All
I think
right.
we need,
Any questions or comments on the motion?
we need to strive for this to be Wednesday because every day is ticking away and this has gone on far too long. We need to wrap this up and get moving on it.
Yeah, because we do have neighbors in the community that have really been suffering, and they've been more than patient. And I think we need to, I agree with Trustee Skornicka, we got to get this wrapped up.
Yeah, I agree. If we can do it Wednesday and the information can be available and prepared and we have, and we're clear in order to get the meeting Wednesday, but if we can't get clarification in time to get the notification, we may have to do Thursday, but I will trust our village manager to do his best to get the meeting as early as possible.
And we're all in agreement with that. Are there any other questions or comments on the motion?
Yes, Trustee Eshman, I would recommend that we have legal in our closed session meeting.
To have them present?
Yes, please.
Do you want that at all tied to the motion, or are you just making a request?
I like whoever made the motion, if they can amend to include the legal, be involved with that closed session. I would highly recommend that, or I'll make a separate motion for that.
I would question, do we need to include that, or can we just give direction to that? Because we're mentioning a closed session and it's not, right now at this point, it's not totally clear if this is allowed in closed session or not. So I think that we have to know that it's allowed in closed session before we can make statements that we will have an attorney present in the closed session. So I would just prefer to give direction outside of the outside of the motion.
I'll make a separate motion. Thank you.
All right, so Larry, your motion stands, and Dan, your support stands at this point? All right. Any other questions or comments on this?
Question regarding a closed session. When is it going to be? Wednesday, Thursday, PM?
It's going to find out.
The motion itself is what the question is at this time, and then we can definitely have that discussion. But that's going to be based on the information we received back.
Yeah,
and when
current
we-
motion is to postpone this item to the special meeting. And Dan wants to
All right.
make a subsequent motion regarding closed session and attendance of attorney.
Okay.
And I would expect without further direction from council that it'd be scheduled for 7:00 on the first day that we can, Wednesday or Thursday.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Courtney, I believe we're ready.
Butsu,
Yes.
Eshman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Yes.
and Price.
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries 7-0.
So
And
this
we will
is
look for more
trustee-
information from Dale, please, when available.
So this is
Yeah,
trustee
Dan?
Richmond.
Dan, you also had something?
Yes, thank you. So this is trustee Eshman. I would like, in pursuant of the recent motion to have a closed session meeting in regards to Crossman Park Drain, I would like to make a motion that we have our legal attend that closed session whenever that meeting is scheduled. This
That
is
is-
trustee Batu. I support that.
And that is if that it isn't appropriate to have a closed session, correct?
Correct.
Do you want to make that in your motion? And if we can't, do we still want legal in a regular special meeting or no? Only in the closed session?
I think we can have it open. We can't talk about it open now. When can we talk about it open? So that was the whole purpose for that. That was the whole purpose to have a closed session. So.
And we need I'm
and-
saying if we have verification and by chance it comes back, we can't, do you want that null and void and do you want them still there or no? That's what I'm saying.
I would like them still there because there are questions that I believe we cannot answer and only legal could.
So do we want them to be at our special meeting or only in the closed session? I guess is what my concern is. You pinpointed only to a closed session.
You mean only for the agenda item, Tanya?
I'm sorry. I'd like to make an amendment to my motion. This is trustee Eshman. I'd like to make amendment to my motion to include both, if appropriate, closed session or open session to have legal attend.
You have to have
And
an
that is
open
for this
session to
agenda
even-
item or for the whole meeting, Dan?
For the Crossman Park drain.
Okay, for this specific agenda item, whether it's open or closed. Okay.
All right.
You gotta
And this is
start out with
trustee
open
Butsu,
meeting
and
to
I still
have a
support
closed
that.
meeting anyway.
So we have a support by Councilman Butsu. And before we have discussion, Courtney, would you like to read that motion to us so we know what we're discussing?
I don't even know who seconded it. I can't hear over everybody else talking at the same time.
That'd be Councilman Butsu.
Thank you. I have a motion by Eshman, seconded by Butsu, to request that legal attend the appropriate closed or open session pursuant to the Crossman Park drain issue. Is that correct?
Perfect.
trustee?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now can we have questions, comments, discussion, please?
I'm good.
All right. Hearing none. Courtney, I believe we're ready for roll call.
Eshman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Cornica,
Yes.
Butsu,
Yes.
Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries 7-0. And quickly, we do have a couple questions or comments coming in. And just a reminder that when we do schedule meetings and they're a special meeting and whether it's open or closed, all of our meetings are scheduled 18 hours minimum in advance. They will be on our website. They will also be posted in 4 different places around town, which includes the library, the village offices, the township offices, and the Old Town Hall. So just keep in mind to keep aware of that. You can also request that through Documents on Demand. If you go on our website, Documents on Demand, you can get emails and alerts when things have been added or changed. If you have any questions with that, please give the office a call and they're more than able to walk you through that and get you set up with that. So that's my little sidebar ad. All right. Item B is our Halloween hours, and I'll give that to Dale as well, please.
At the meeting that we decided that there would be trick-or-treating in the village, there was the hours of the hours for the trick or treating were not set. At one point in time, I was advised, and this newspapers were advised that it would be 6 to 7, and then I was advised after that by some that the traditional time in Ortonville is 6:30 to 7:30. But since neither of those have been set, and to remove any confusion, I recommend that the hours be set now.
I'll make a motion that we approve the hours for trick or treating for this year, 2020, to be 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
This is Trustee Robinson. I support that.
Is there a reason why we're making a motion when that's something that is normally done in the office, that's been done traditionally each year, that we've decided, or can we just simply say, please do as we've always done, and it's fine? I mean, do we need a motion for that?
I would recommend to you all that because of the fact that this has been gone back and forth and around several times, that it would be simpler for everybody if you just set it this time.
Okay.
This is Trustee Hayden. I'm assuming we're in discussion now on the motion, and I would say that I know we said in our original motion last month to do it as usual, quote unquote, and basically way in the past, it used to be 6 to 7, then they changed to 6:30 to 7:30, and that's the way it's been for many years now. So I can understand there could be some confusion, so I am okay with what Dale's suggesting is having a formal motion, so we specify exactly the time so there's no confusion to the public at all on what time trick-or-treating is. So I support having the formal motion for it.
Fine. That's why I
Was that
asked.
because the paper printed it wrong, or is it because wrong information was sent to the paper?
Probably the wrong information was given to the paper initially.
Okay.
And it has been last week and this week, it will be, the reminder will be in the paper that it's 6:30 to 7:30.
Okay, good.
Any other questions, comments?
When is the movie on Halloween night?
When is?
7:45 is my understanding.
Okay,
7:45 is what the ad says in the paper, and that's what CERT has requested.
yep, that's fine. Thank you.
So can I ask you a quick question as far as the movie, or is that separate discussion?
Well, it's part of Halloween. Can we stretch it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I
willing to
don't-
stretch.
No, I think discuss
Okay,
it.
I only have a question, because when Pat George presented it to council, I thought this was fully a Parks and Rec type sponsored event and all that. And then I understand in the paper, it's, saying that other people are sponsoring this and all that. And I'm just confused about this because I thought it was all totally Parks and Rec and that they were facilitating it. So if somebody could just add some clarification. Pat, maybe you can?
I'm under the impression it's sponsored by Parks and Rec, yeah. Period.
So
Yes, I will say this, from what I know, this is Trustee Hayden, from what I know being on CERT team is that it's being coordinated by the Parks and Recs department at the township. There's a number of people who are contributing towards the event, but Fred Waybrandt is basically taking the lead in the organizing and in putting in the permits and ensuring that everything's in place for it.
Okay.
Comments on BGYA has also got a thumb in it.
So it's the funding is by alternate entities. It is being held by the rec department, but the funding that comes into the rec department, he obviously wants to acknowledge who those are.
I don't see Parks and Rec at all on there. I just saw BGYA and a member of public doing it. I didn't see anything where it said Parks and Rec. And that was, the premise that it was approved under.
Yes, the motion was to allow Parks and Rec to show Hotel Transylvania.
Dale, my understanding was that Kara at Parks and Rec Department in the township was preparing the permit request and was working that out with Chief. Have you received the final request from the Parks and Rec Department yet?
For the movie,
Yes.
I think so, but I've had a couple of them and I'm not sure which ones we approved or not, but I think we did.
Okay. And it did come from Parks and Recs, correct?
That I don't remember.
Okay.
All I know is I got a request from somebody.
Yeah, I know I did talk to Kara personally, and she said she was working with the chief to prepare that and get it submitted for the village. So, and she's with the Parks and Recs Department at the township.
All right, thank you. That's all I wanted because I understand a lot of other people are involved, and so I thought, well.
Yes, a lot of other people are involved, but Parks and
Okay,
Rec is
but-
the one who is
okay.
officially requesting
Okay,
the event.
that's all I wanted to know. Thank you so much.
All right, so we are back to our motion. And that is the set time of 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Any other questions or comments? I believe we're ready. Courtney, please.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Gornica,
Yes.
Butsu,
Yes.
Eshman,
Yes.
and Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. The motion carries 7-0. Next up is item C, which is the retro pay. And I will hand that to Dale as well.
When this item was presented to council, it was after the adoption of our budget. And there was a recommendation in the budget for across the board increases to different members of the of staff for the village. In that memo to you, I did not request retroactive pay. And it was not something that was brought up by anybody on council for discussion. And it was my assumption at that time, because I was asked later by some of staff and by someone executing the increase, whether it was retroactive. And I said no, because the council had not said that it was, and that from my standpoint that meant that it was adopted effective at that date and after that date. And I think that in the situation of this, there's no rule or obligation that there are annual increases in the village or anywhere else in municipal government. I think when an increase is passed, it's passed. And therefore, it is not my recommendation that retroactivity be granted. I think if it is granted, there's a question as to whether it should be granted to everyone who is in employ as of July 1st, or if it's only for those people who are still employed today and that they would be given retroactive for their items. I've included with the memo a breakdown of each employee and how they would be affected by a retroactive increase if it was granted. I leave that to council.
I'd like to hear from the Personnel Committee. What is the Personnel Committee's recommendation to council for this topic?
Well, this was not brought to personnel. This was brought directly to council. So the personnel has not had a chance to meet and discuss that topic.
And they said in their committee updates, they didn't meet in October. And they don't have a full.
Well,
committee.
but the personnel was in check back in July when this took place. So what was their thoughts at that time? What were they trying to recommend to council at that time?
We recommended the increase and that was granted and that was discussed and voted on. That was what we discussed at that time. Beyond that, this is now a
Yeah,
second.
I do not recall any mention about retroactivity when we were discussing the recommended pay increases.
It was
So I
not
think that
discussed
did
either
not
way.
topic come up with us.
And I will say to you, I don't have a memory that the Personnel Committee discussed any increase.
I'm only
because-
asking, but go ahead. I'm only asking Dale because I didn't know if there was a recommendation at
No,
the time.
right. What I'm saying is I don't have a memory that item ever came up. When I put it on the agenda, at that point in time, I think that there was only 2 members of the Personnel Committee. And even though there's debate among all of you as to when they can meet and when they can't, it was after the fact, I believe, when the council had said that the Personnel Committee should include 3 individuals. Since there was not 3 individuals, I didn't send it off to them to review first.
Okay, thank you.
And come to think of it, I think you're correct, Dale. I remember seeing the memo come out, but we did not formally meet as a personnel committee and discuss that. You're correct.
There was no meeting, there was an email sent, correct? There was no official meeting, there was an email sent.
Yes.
This is
When was the
trustee
last
Eshman.
time
I think
the
we know-
personnel committee had met? This is trustee Robinson. When was the last official meeting?
Without looking at my calendar, I have no idea. Was it the beginning of September? 7, 6, I don't remember.
It was.
I'd have to go in the minutes and look, I'm not sure.
This is trustee Eshman. I
No,
think we
that's
follow
probably
a recommendation of the village manager and not make this retroactive. Let's just move forward with what we approved.
To answer your question, Mark, I did just check my calendar. It looks like it may have been the last personnel committee I saw in my calendar was August 3rd.
Oh, the beginning of August? I was thinking beginning of September.
Yes, and I believe at that time we met to discuss Liz's resignation letter and handling of that.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, it's a totally different subject. It's later on the agenda, so I'll just hold my thoughts on that then for now.
So what we have is a motion on the table by Councilman Eshman.
So, I'm sorry, I did not make a motion. I don't know that we even need to act on this. I think Dale made his recommendation that we don't act on the retroactive. And if a motion's required on it, I'll make that motion. But
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
think we
then I
need to act on
misunderstood you.
them. I'm
I
sorry?
misunderstood you, I'm sorry. I thought you said I motioned to support. You said you made,
No.
okay,
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
support Dale's position not to make it retroactive and only move on what we approve.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Thank you.
That's all right.
All right, so do we have any other comments or discussion input on the request, the memorandum, both, either
Yeah,
or?
this is trustee George. I guess my question would be, historically, how are the pay increases handled? And by that, I mean specific time of the year. Is it typically starts on a pay increase for the employees? Is it typically done effective July 1st? Is there no specific date when these go into effect? Historically, what's happened?
Historically, we've never approved pay increases based off of when the budget was placed. It was always when we approved whatever recommendation came from personnel, and effective that on I guess it was the following month or the very next week, we would execute that approval. But it was never based off of when we approved the budgetary amounts for each.
Okay, so in other words, Dan, what you're saying is historically these can occur at different times during the year?
When the motion is a recommendation by personnel committee and when council approves it, you're correct. Whenever
Okay.
that happens, that's when they're executed.
That's fine.
And without having that information in front of us, I don't tend to agree. We have had that retroactive. I don't know consistently how many times it's been retroactive versus it hasn't. I'm not sure, Beth, if you have that information on you right now, you're more than welcome to pipe in. If not, I understand you weren't prepared for that. But it has been, yes, both ways. The number of times which way, I'm not sure. Without having that information in front of me, I wouldn't know an actual count.
This is trustee Robinson. And before Beth answers that question, I agree with Tanya that, I mean, we have, like, I believe last year we made it retroactive. So with that being said, I have questions as well.
So what we're saying is anytime we approve a budgetary amount, when we approve the budget, we're giving them an immediate pay increase at that point.
It shouldn't be.
Yes.
That is not true.
You're right. That's true.
No, this
So
is
what's the
trustee Hayden. That is
retroactive?
not true. The budget is not the same as the agreed salary or hourly pay for workers. Those are two separate topics. The budget may be increased to accommodate an expected increase, but it is not that the salaries are directly tied to the budget.
The
The
adoption
budget
of,
just
so
has
what
to
is the
cover the
retro-
salaries.
the adoption
So what
of
is the
the
retroactive
simply
date then?
says going forward what you intend to have your income and expenses be. It is not the approval of individual line items in the budget in any form.
Correct.
I totally agree. So what is it, what's the retroactive date being requested of us then?
July 1st?
The July 1st, as it is standard when we do approve it. I'm not saying, I don't know how many consistent years we have or have not been retroactive, but we have historically been retroactive. But I cannot tell you how many years.
So just for clarity, the request at this point, or the recommendation, or the thought of retroactive is back to when we approved the budget. Is that a true statement, or is it retroactive on a different date?
July 1st.
I think it's not when we approve the budget. I think it's when the fiscal year began, which is July 1st. That's not when we approved the budget. If you recall, we did a quick review at the end of June to get the fiscal budget approved because we were initially told we had until October, and then it was determined that was incorrect. So we held a special meeting to get that budget approved, so it would go into effect for July 1, so we'd be compliant.
This is Trustee Batsu. Just to be clear on my side, that recommendation should be coming from the Personnel Committee. Is that true?
Standardly, the request would go to personnel.
Okay, so it would come from the Personnel Committee to the council for vote, correct?
It would come from,
Yes.
it would typically come from the manager to the personnel committee, and then from there to the full board.
Okay, thank you.
So the manager is part of the Personnel Committee, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
And for this request specifically was made by the employees. So that's, it would come to personnel. And then that, like I said, it had gone to council. So we need to decide, I guess, what we choose to do at this point. If we want to know which years were retroactive, which weren't. If we'd like, more input, more information, that's what for us to decide.
This is Trustee Hayden. I would just like to, just for the record, the total amount we're talking about, I just did quick math based upon everything Dale had provided in the packet, and it looks like if we made it retroactive to all employees to July 1st, we're talking about $830, just so we know the amount. And I will also just add that this has been somewhat of a chaotic year, both due to multiple things. Number one is pandemic is not the least of which. We also had a clerk resign, which significantly hampered our office operations, and that also issues around that also significantly hampered personnel committee's normal routines. So there was a lot of factors went into this, and I think it may be appropriate to have this reviewed by the personnel committee to see if it's something that we would want to make retroactive or not. Of course, that would also have to be at the will of the council if they want personnel committee to review this in more detail and come back to it with a recommendation.
This is Trustee Robinson.
Now, Larry, if you like that, well, you can go ahead and make a motion now. Why do we have to wait and pay the personnel committee to meet to make a decision right now? If you like it, just make a motion.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
In the words of other council members, it's like, that's what we pay a manager to do. We go on his recommendations. That's what he's there to do.
That's right.
And
But if that recommendation is different than prior years, and Dale hasn't been here that long.
This is Trustee Robinson. I agree with Pat George. I almost think that we should table this. I'm not saying we should, but we're only doing a discussion, and maybe we should to look at past years to see what we've done, because I don't recall exactly. I do have some recollection of us doing that, going back on pay. You know what I mean? I want to be somewhat consistent.
And that's my concern with obviously the turnover that we've had. We also went through this when some of them got a certain percent and some of them got a bonus, and we had to review and pull that chart up. And this would be nice to review and make sure that we're being as consistent as we can. And I definitely agree with that. We want to make sure we are doing what we should be doing and normally do.
So how far back are we going to go to establish consistency?
Good question.
Years.
How many years?
I'm thinking at least 5, don't you?
I was thinking
Last 5.
5.
5 would probably give a better track record because that'll cover at least 2 different seated councils.
And 5 managers.
Oh, I think
Trustee
we
Hayden,
all should mute
personally,
right now.
I'm kind of in between on this because on the one hand, I agree that we do have our village manager and we should trust him to an extent to help guide us with these decisions. But at the same time, I understand this has been a particularly difficult year, and this would be, making that retroactive could be a nice way to show our support of our village staff through these tough times. So I'm kind of like on the fence on what we should do, and I think I would like to see more review before we come to a final decision on it.
Also, keep in mind
This is
that a lot
Trustee
of them were
Eshman.
working from home during this time too, because of COVID, so they weren't in the office.
So this is Trustee Eshman. I totally agree with you about eating and listening to our village manager, but I believe in our last meeting, village manager recommended to forego a time period and pay a new employee holiday pay when in fact we have employees on the books today that have not exceeded that year limit and will not get paid holiday pay. So I question that, and I do believe it needs to go back to personnel, and I think we need to revisit that and find out what the personnel's recommendation is based off of the 5-year period that we just discussed.
I think we have to keep in mind that also during that 5 years, which I think was just within the last year or two, when they had that certain, for lack of a better word, bonus payout, and we did away with that. So I'm not sure going back the last 5 years is going to give us a true accurate counting of a retro pay. It really just needs to be the retro pay portion of it, not anything else then.
Well, we
Well,
can
we're
start with a
looking- we're looking
5-year
at a
review
date,
and see
not
if
an
we need to
amount.
go further back to get more clarity.
We're
I
looking for
agree.
the date that those began, not the amounts. It doesn't matter necessarily what they received, it's when they started their additional amount. So we're just looking at dates only.
And
So
It's just something else.
yeah,
that
let's make a
personnel committee
decision on
does.
this before we move on to item C.
So are we all
can
in
we table this?
consensus? We all in consensus that we're looking for a 5-year review of what date the pay increase started each year, each fiscal year?
This is Trustee Robinson, yes.
Anybody else?
So, and then one other question is, rather than waiting all the way to the end of December to discuss this again, can we add it to our upcoming meeting that we're going to have? And I assume we can get that information prior to, so that we're not belaboring the decision as to what's going to happen or take our employees that far along without knowing what's going to happen.
Well, I
This
guess
is
that-
Trustee Hayden. I don't. This is Trustee Hayden. I don't know if this is a personnel committee matter and you want personnel committee to review it. I don't know if I would have time for us to have a personnel to get the information, have a personnel committee review it, analyze it, provide a recommendation, and have it on an agenda item on Wednesday night. That is just. I don't see that as realistic. I don't see how we could include that on a meeting on Wednesday.
I don't see a need for personnel meddling in this. I think we have enough things that have dropped with personnel, and I don't think this is something that that they should meddle in. So I think we should just have the information obtained from the manager, and we can look at it at the special meeting, or just make the decision and go with what the village manager is recommending.
Well, I guess council needs to decide whether they're going to follow correct procedures or whether they're going to make them up as they go along. That will be the decision. It's not meddling, it's following procedures.
Yeah, this, as Manager Stewart pointed out, this is typically the manager would make a recommendation and personnel committee would normally review it before passing it on for council for decision.
And information will be gathered by the treasurer, then given to whoever's going to review it. Whether that's available by Wednesday or not, I'm not quite sure. That's making assumptions. It's up to you guys whether you think that is something by Wednesday or something by the November meeting.
This is Trustee Buster.
I have a question. I would be able to vote yes on this tonight. I'm sorry. I would be able to vote on this tonight. Is there anybody out there who's undecided of the 7 council members that would want more time? I don't need time. I
Make
can
a
vote.
motion, Pat.
If you want to make a motion, Pat, go for it.
All right, I would make a motion that we vote on this matter tonight regarding a retroactive pay increase.
Is your motion to allow a retroactive or to leave as stand?
My motion would be to allow a retroactive pay increase, which is what the employees are requesting. Larry mentioned it's $875 total. It's been a COVID year. We've got holidays coming up, whatever. I can make a decision on that right now. And so the motion would be to vote on this now regarding a retroactive pay increase for the employees. And again, that would be for a retroactive pay increase for the employees.
Do I have support?
Support.
All right. Motion on the table by Councilman George, supported by Councilman Eschman. Any questions, comments, discussion on the motion?
I didn't do the math, but Larry, was that including all current and past employees or just current?
I included all of the amounts that Dale had put on the papers. And it came to exactly $829.99 is what I came to.
And those calculations were for all employees who were on the payroll as of July 1st, even if they've since left employ.
Okay, so that may make a difference if council wants to include all employees or just current employees. But also, council, keep in mind that that they weren't working at that time, that they were, at home. So just something to keep in mind as well when you make your decision.
And Trustee Skornick, that would be some of the employees were not in the office full time at that time, but
Correct.
the DPW crew was all
Correct.
still working.
Correct.
But not in the office and not working are two different things. They were reduced hours, but they still were working, and they were working multiple hours. So there's a big difference between
They
that.
weren't working from home because we don't have a working from home policy. I mean, that's what I've been told, that they weren't working from home. Is that a true statement?
There was some employees that did some work from home, but
Okay.
most of it was at the office in reduced hours to
Okay,
keep the social distancing and other protections that we needed for COVID. But there was never a time when the offices were not being manned.
sure.
Yeah, if we look at just the clerk and treasurer, I think the total, it looks like it's about $257.10, something like that. So the majority of that, I think, is still DPW crew, which we're working during the entire
Can-
COVID.
This is Beth. Can I make a comment?
Please.
No.
We opened the office back the 6th of July. So between July and August the 27th, that we are looking for retro pay. I was working full time in the office, 40-hour week. So I was not working at home. We were not on our short work weeks. We were back working full time.
Okay.
And I
Thank you,
have
Beth.
one more comment. This year, from my recollection, is the only year we did not get retro pay. We did get it last year and every year after that. And most years, there was no retro pay because come July 1st, it was automatic. We got whatever was budgeted. And that was during probably the John Lyons years.
Beth, can you think of any years that your pay increase did not start on July 1st?
Well, last year it didn't. Last year it was like in September. And I will have to look it up, but when Bill Sprague was here, we did not get it right right on July 1st either, but we did get retro pay.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I was just curious if you had it in your head.
Well, that helps out a lot. So
Well, that's why
are we
I
ready
was,
to vote?
that's why I'm asking for it. It's because we've always gotten it.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Beth.
Does any other council members have any other questions or comments on the retro pay? All right. Courtney, could you please read us the motion and we're ready to vote?
I have a motion by George, seconded by Ashman, to allow a retroactive pay increase for the employees as requested.
Pat, would you like to make that July 1st?
Yes,
Retroactive July 1st, 2020?
yes.
Pat, do you want to include current employees?
Or all employees.
Okay, I'm asking Pat.
I think whoever it affects. I mean, when oh gosh, help me.
Past and present?
Like when we lost Pete, for
Mike.
example, we gave Pete retroactive. I'll use the term. Basically, he was owed it. So I guess if there was an employee working there during this time period, they would partake in retroactive pay. And if the person was not working, then if somebody, for example, our new clerk, her salary would start to work. But I guess I'm thinking in Liz's case, if she was there and working during that time period, just like with Pete, she would get retroactive pay.
Mike as well.
That much.
Mike as well.
And Mike as well, exactly. Yeah, I don't think it's that much.
Thank you for clarifying. Courtney, can you read our amended motion?
I have a motion by George, seconded by Ashman, to allow a retroactive pay increase to July 1st, 2020 for the employees as requested. Is
Sound
that
good?
correct, George?
Okay, or more specifically, if the employees were working during that time period, so whatever that would be.
Right, because Pete, it doesn't include Pete. When somebody, I think Tanya said Pete. Pete's
Exactly.
not wasn't there. Pete was
No, I
not there.
said Mike.
Yeah, it doesn't include Mike though.
It would be anybody on July 1st.
Yeah, if they were there July 1st, however far they went out, exactly.
And Dan, are you okay with that motion?
Sure.
So I
All
just included to July 1st for the employees employed at that time as requested.
Yes.
Are you okay with that motion, Dan?
Yes, I am.
All right, perfect. Are we ready for a vote?
Okay.
All right.
Boy,
Courtney, go ahead, please.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Cornica,
Yes.
Butsu,
No.
Ashman,
following our village manager's recommendation, no.
George,
Yes.
and Bryce.
Yes. Motion carries 5-2. Item D will be the discussion of the clerk holiday pay.
This issue was brought to the attention of council at the request of Councilman Robinson. When I made the recommendation to council to have the clerk receive holiday pay beginning immediately instead of delayed by what I thought was 90 days according to the rules. When I read the rules, I was reading only the first page that said that certain these benefits took place after 90 days. And so in looking at the holidays coming up, I thought it didn't make a lot of sense to have the new clerk taken out of that. However, in the next page, Councilman Robinson pointed out properly that the holiday pay is not paid for the first year. That was not part of my consideration when I made the recommendation to you. It was not part of the offer of employment that I made to the clerk, that any discussion was made of holiday pay other than what was in the manual. I think for clarity purposes and from the fact that it's been pointed out that we have at least one employee who was not, did not receive the benefit of being paid holidays during the same period of time, that for consistency, I recommend that the new clerk and the new DPW employee be affected by the personnel policy as to holidays, as is included in our manual, and that there not be payment in the first 90 days.
Do we need to make a motion on that, or is that just based on Manager Stewart's recommendation?
Well, I think you need to make a motion because in the last meeting, you made a motion to provide
Okay.
holiday pay for the new clerk in the first 90 days. And it was a mistake on my part.
Okay. Thank you, Dale. This is Trustee Robinson. I'd like to make a motion to rescind the prior approval holiday pay for the new clerk effective prior to the first 90 days, and to make it effective is the same as what our personnel manual states after 1 year.
Support.
This is Trustee Batsu. I support that.
Anyway, there's a motion by Councilman Robinson, supported by Councilman Skornica. And do we have any questions or discussion on this topic or motion? All right. Hearing none, looks like we're ready for a vote, please, Courtney.
Robinson?
Yes.
I was like, oh, am I muted? Skornica?
Yes.
Batsu?
Yes.
Eshman?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Hayden?
Yes.
Bryce?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up is item
you, Dale.
E.
Mhm.
Next up is item E, and that is the Personnel Committee appointment. And that was continued as to fill the personnel third seat. As we met last month, Mark Robinson was to request or suggest a couple committees that he would choose to be on, so we can rearrange committee members. And we haven't had the opportunity to do that at this point. And so we continue to have that item postponed to the next meeting.
Mhm. Yeah. Shocker.
So when Mark and I get a chance to discuss that, we will be able to look, we're going to have to switch up some committees, as there will be some openings after the elections in general. And so that'll be a good time to go ahead and use that segue. And that is item F, Sherman Park Concessions Grant. That also goes back to Dale, please.
We, in review of all of the grants that we have and that are in process, we've had to change the main person in charge from the village, which was previously the previous clerk. And I've had that changed to my name, and I'm dealing with the woman from the DNR who is being very helpful in all of the forms and everything that goes through. Councilman Skornica indicated to me that she believes that we have adopted the resolution that I have on before you tonight before, and that may well be true. But in the discussions that I have had with the state, they have indicated to me that even though we're kind of past the date for acceptance of this grant, we're still fine. We're still all right because they understand what we're going through, but that what they need from us is the adoption of this resolution, as I prepared it for you, and a copy and the development project agreement. Those two things have to be forwarded to them with a current date, and then the rest of the documentation we're adding to it as we go along. But we're making the contact and we're doing what the people are asking us to do. But I do need to have you adopt to have by motion authorize me to sign the development project agreement and adopt the resolution as it's been presented to you.
This is Trustee Hayden. I make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant under project number TF19-0192.
No, it's 1092.
Oh, 0192.
No, 1092.
10. Oh, okay. Was that a typo in the cover
No, that's
letter?
how it reads. That's how it reads.
No,
Yes, it is a typo.
Oh, it is a typo. You're right. It's a typo. It should be 0192.
I'm
Okay.
looking at the 0192. That's what I was reading, and that's what's on the
You're okay,
form.
Larry.
Okay.
It's my typing.
Okay.
Trustee Hayden, do you mind starting over?
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant under project number TF19-0192.
Trustee Eshman, support.
And I think I mentioned as presented after that. So
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Ashman. Do we have any questions or comments on this resolution? And
Yes, this is Trustee Robinson. I brought it up to Manager Stewart about 3 weeks or so ago. Excuse me. And I believe we have a total of 5 grants out there. One, I believe, was part of the streets, the crack issues and all that. So I just wanted, since we're talking about grants, and I did originally request that we discuss all the grants that are out there so we don't miss any opportunity. Okay, so I just want to make sure that, after we vote, that we talk about the other grants. Okay.
And just so you know, this is the Sherman Park concession grant in the village manager's report. He does address it. You're more than welcome to ask him questions at that point,
Okay.
but definitely address it. Any other questions or comments on this specific grant and the resolution?
yes, as Dale pointed out, I spoke with him regarding this, and it looks to me that this project is dated, it's dated August 31st, or the end date, I'm sorry, is dated August 31st, 2022. And it goes for the time period from August 3rd, 2020 through August 31st, 2022. And my concern is that this appears to be a new one. So when I mentioned to him that it looks like we've already done that, we've already done that. We have a resolution that we did March, and I provided him with the resolution number. And we've had our public hearings for both the recreational passport grant and the DNR one. So I'm a bit confused as to why we would be starting from scratch doing this one for a time period that goes out to 2022 when our resolutions that we passed March of 19, we're at the seek bids. As of January of 2020, we were at the seeking bids. So where do we stand with the bids? We should be at the tail end of these, not at the beginning of them. And in our minutes of January 27, 2020, it says about getting the bids for the engineer drawings for proposed improvements to the Sherman Memorial Ballpark. And it also has, like I said, our public hearing. All of this is in the final stages. And on both resolutions, it gives the amount, and it says the total project cost for $37,000 during the 2019-2020 fiscal year. So that implies to me that we've missed that because the bids weren't sought out. So unless this resolution is not accurate because it says fiscal year, I'm concerned that this new one is simply that, a new one, and we're starting over.
It's not a new one. We're not starting over. This
Okay.
is the documentation for the current trust fund grant that we've been talking about all along. There was a previous request for a grant through the DNR for the same building that the village walked away from, but that was a year or so ago. This is not a new grant. It's not a new period. It's what has been discussed since I've been here. And this is just the documentation that's required from the state for the funding in this period of time.
But I guess where I'm bit lost, Dale, is that we've already held our public notice, our public hearing for these, and we were seeking bids. So how could we be seeking bids? What's the status of our bids?
There's not been any bids sought. There's not been any of that in the files that I have seen.
See, that's the problem then. So somewhere this has gotten lost, because we were at the bid stage and we're wrapping this up. So between I don't know.
So in two discussions with Fred and the DNR, we have two variables that came into effect. We changed who our leadership is in the office of the project, and their fiscal year is in September. So between the two, they're requesting the items to be updated and sent to them again, as it has been a certain time frame and the changes have been made. So it's not a replacement per se, it's an update. And those are the two items that they've requested us to update with them. And like I said, those are two variables in which the DNR discussed and Fred has also mentioned. So they're consistently parallel, and there's no question as to the changes that we've made, and the fiscal year ending in September needs us to update these information. So it's very simple.
This is George Erickman with a quick question. Is this going to delay the payment, so the original payment to payout of the grant, or is this we're going to still get the payout at the same time period?
We will get the same reimbursements of the grant as the records that we have show that we were going to get it.
Which is when?
When we incur expense. We haven't incurred any expense yet.
Pat, I'm sorry, you said you were going to speak?
Yeah, my understanding on this, Colleen, there were basically two grants. One was the Sherman Park concession stand improvements, and that's the $37,000. That is the one right now that we're talking about. The other one was for additional improvements to Sherman Park in general, and we dropped that one. So we only have one DNR grant out there right now that's still in play. The other one was dropped. And that $37,000 one, my understanding on that, it's common procedure initially to get agreement from council that we want to go through with it. And then from what I understand from my conversations with Fred, it is then customary at some point later, the DNR comes back to us. And this was actually in August that they did such, asking us simply to sign it. If it sounds like we're signing it again, we are. They're asking us to confirm that we are indeed still interested. And August 6th came, and because of the problems with the clerk situation, they weren't acted upon. So Dale has renewed that, and we are still talking about the original concession stand grant only for $37,000. And what we're looking for now with a standard procedure is a reaffirmation that we are indeed still interested in pursuing it. And that's what we're signing.
Well, they're both for 37,000, but
that's it, exactly.
So
just that one grant, Colleen. The other one's off the table. And this is standard procedure. It's just that with the problems we were having internally there, and with Liz being a person on the documents from DNR, this just was not acted upon. But as Dale mentioned, Mary at the DNR has been very supportive and says that's fine. We'll open that window up again for you, and you still have time to re-sign the agreement, and you're fine. So that's where we're at. So we're going to need that agreement re-signed, and that's standard procedure.
And so we'll have to have another public hearing, right? We'll have to go through the process.
No.
We don't have to do that again?
No.
Nope, we've already done that. So all we have to do is the council still is interested, and I'm hoping we say, yes, we are.
So is this the recreational passport grant or the natural resources grant?
This is the National Trust Fund grant.
Yeah, it's for the concession stand. I know that much.
Well, I know both of them said that. So it's the natural resources trust fund grant. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and it's specifically for the concession stand only.
But with I
So
understand.
this is Trustee Eshman. So just for clarity, we're redoing this to update it with a new date, right? As opposed to a date that we previously did on the old resolution. So basically, we're just doing the resolution all over again with a fresh date so that we can still get it done. Basically, because the other resolution had a date previous to when we should have gotten it in.
Correct.
And additionally, we're also updating who has the authority to execute the grant with the state, correct?
And that's now Dale. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and this was in, you said in August. So I'm not sure. All the emails were forwarded, but I'm not sure where everything got lost at. But I just want to be sure that we did not lose anything. And you're assuring me that we did not lose anything. It's just simply resubmitting this and expanding the time for it.
Correct.
What was sent to us in August is no longer of concern. I've been assured that we're in the right process to do, provided we continue to move forward.
Correct.
All right, sounds good.
Sounds good to me. I think we're lucky they allowed us to do this.
I do too.
Great.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up last month that we need to review our grants out there, because I thought we had 5 at one time. So
yeah, this shouldn't have gotten. We should have made sure that we kept up on the agenda when the manager and the president, put the agendas together to make sure that doesn't fall through the cracks. So
are there any other questions or discussions on the Sermon Park concession grant? All right, we have a motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Eshman. Looks like we are ready for a vote, please.
You're muted, Courtney.
oh, yep, can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm using 2 different computers, so sometimes I forget to click the button. Skornica?
yes.
Butsu?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Eshman?
Yes.
Hayden?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Rice?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up is item G, and that is our rules of procedure.
No. You need to.
We have one more motion.
Authorize
Oh,
the signing of the development project agreement.
wait a minute. Okay, hold on. All right. Part 2. To authorize the park concession agreement. Do we
I move to
Can I
authorize
entertain a
the
motion?
manager to execute the development project agreement regarding the Sherman Memorial Village Park concession renovation being project number TF19-0192.
This
We
is
have
Trustee
support.
Robinson. Support.
Who was first? Was that Butsu or Ashman? I see you light up, but I didn't know who was speaking.
Well, actually, it's Robinson.
Trustee Robinson. I'll concede the Trustee Robinson.
Well, I saw Ashman light up, so it's whoever
I
was
heard
on.
Trustee Robinson start stating his name first, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, I was doing it the proper way.
we're going to give it to Trustee Robinson because he followed directions. And we have a motion on the table by Councilman Skornica, supported by Councilman Robinson. Do we have any questions or comments on this one?
Trustee Skornica, I apologize. There was so much talking going on. Did you read it right off the
Yes.
memorandum? Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments, discussion on this item? All right, I think we're ready for you, Courtney, please.
Batsu,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Eshman,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Skornica,
Yes.
and Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries 7-0 as well. Now we are ready for item G, which is the rules of procedure.
As was requested from me at the last meeting, I made contact with Brandon Township, Groveland Township, and Independence Township with regard to how they handle the contact with the attorney of record for the municipality. And in each instance, it was indicated to me that in the case of the townships, it was the supervisor who had the primary responsibility to do that.
Did
So
you hear any?
It was one person who had the right to do it.
Okay. Did you hear back from any other communities, or was that
No,
consistent with all of
I
them?
did not check with other communities. I checked with the ones that were closest to us. It was suggested to me that I should talk to some of the other villages, and I didn't get a chance to do that. I can do that still if you want me to.
Okay, so in all cases of the ones you did contact, they had one person who was the contact for the attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Their chief administrative officer.
So this was a request made from council members. What would be the further guidance on this? Are we good with where we're at? Did we want anything else? Where are we at?
This is Trustee Hayden. My suggestion is just include this information when the rules of procedure are up for review at the November meeting by the newly seated council.
This is Trustee Batsu. I agree with Larry. I think we can move on from here if we're going to discuss this later on. That's fine.
All right. Request to include it with the rules and procedures for November. All right. Any other discussion, comments, questions? All right. Looks like we are ready for the village manager's report. Please, Dale.
Okay, the main thing, other than what I have printed out for you and what I've tried to do as various emails come through to my office, if there's something that I think is of general interest or could be of general interest to council that you might not otherwise see, that's what I'm including in the report. The one thing that I did intend to include in this report that I did not is that we have hired a new person for Department of Public Works, and he has started this last Monday. I say his name so often that I'm going to have to try to find his folder so I can tell you what his name is.
Is it Skip, Dale?
Is it what?
Skip?
Skip is what he goes by, but that's not the
Right.
formal name.
Okay. I don't know his formal name.
But anyway, he started. We're very Bob is very excited about the possibility about him being here. He thinks that he's going to fit well with the staff. That he has the experiences that are necessary. William Craig Genza is the man's name. A gentleman who has experience in doing the kinds of things that we need to do for DPW. and in plowing and in the other items of skills that are necessary in the DPW department. We're very anxious to see what he can do, but he's been here for about a week and we're pleased so far with what he's done. And as usual, we went through all the processes of physical and criminal check and driving check and everything proved fine.
What was the last name?
Tregenza.
This is Trustee Robinson.
Genza.
Okay, thank you.
This is Trustee Robinson. Dale, so is this a good backup for Bob? As far as plowing and all that, he already has experience.
He has limited experience in plowing. He's going to need more training. I think he's going to be fine because he's had enough variety of experiences in this kind of work. Bob is very confident that it's going to be a seamless transition.
All right, thank you.
And then Dale, did you want to touch on the grant updates as well, please?
Sure. Councilman Robinson indicated he thought there were 5 grants. As near as I can tell, there are currently 3 outstanding grants that we're dealing with. One is
we only had a total of 4, right? Instead of the other one was a duplicate that Pat George had mentioned. Is that correct?
Oh, okay. Well, the 3 that are current that I'm aware of is the MDOT Small Urban Program Grant for funding in 2023, which is in the amount of $281,250 and requires a $56,250 local match. This would fund 1 mile of sidewalk on the south side of Oakwood Road from the village limit to Brandon Hill Street. The other is our crack seal program that we have handled for the last several years. We're through that process now. We're just in the process of accumulating all of the expense slips, time slips and labor slips and material slips to get reimbursement from the county. And the final grant is what we just discussed at some length tonight, the Sherman Park concession stand, which is in the amount of $37,000 with $11,100 local match. And we are on target to get that in process appropriately.
Okay, this is Trustee Robinson again. Dale, I mean, we've had multiple sidewalk projects and everything, and every time we turn around, the price of materials and all that double and triple and all that. So what are our thoughts as far as in a couple of years from now, us being able to utilize that grant to do that whole project for the 1 mile length?
Well, hopefully once we get through and out of all of this COVID stuff, some of this stuff is going to loosen up. We will continue to keep our ear to the ground for any possible funding for sidewalk issues. But we have not only some of the neighborhood sidewalks, but we've got downtown sidewalks that we need to be thinking about. But it is not something that is out of our mind. It's just that there's no current grant or anything that appropriate that deals with that. Okay,
because as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing that take place on Oakwood, and I know a lot of our residents as well. It's been brought up several times, and again, I know a few years back we also approved some of the other sidewalk work, like down Ball Street and Narren and all that. So I mean, we're still holding on to that, and I know right now Crossman Park drain has been a huge factor of taking away funds and borrowing and all that. But we're still looking at, fulfilling that obligation that we made, right? As far as the other, okay.
Well, and the difference is, I think with this one, there's a grant involved, not necessarily just us budgeting. So I hope that could assist us.
No, and I understand. I just didn't want to lose focus that we have the other projects as well that we had committed, I guess, to the public about. So I just want to remind us.
We have the engineering complete on those sidewalks. It's just, and when this last thing came through, we tried to have some discussion directly with some of the contractors to see if there's anything that we could work out. And I was hopeful we were moving towards something. And then with other things that were coming up, we just couldn't pursue it.
I understand. And like I said, I know the Crossman Drain has been a huge factor in that. I just didn't want us to, put it on the back burner and forget about it. That's all.
Okay.
This is
So-
Trustee Hayden. This is where I think that it would be very beneficial if we could finally get around to finalizing or getting a more robust capital improvement plan in place where we could capture all these projects and have a better tool to use to help us with the budget planning for future years. We've all seen what the chief does for the fire department with equipment and all, and that's a very useful way to analyze your budget and look at expenses. And I think that we need to put more focus on getting a good capital improvement plan so we can have a better long-term view for our budgeting needs.
The big difference between the fire department and their capital improvement plan and the capital improvement plan for the village is they have money.
This is true, but if we don't know what we need to spend money on, it's hard to budget for it.
Well, at the present time, you are spending very prudently and very carefully for what you have, but you don't have much to spend. So when we look at any one of these things, you can project out anything you want, but unless you can show me a source of funding for it, we're not going to go far.
That's true.
So Dale, I got a question for you. This is Trustee Eshman. So with the MDOT Small Urban Program grant for the sidewalk, where do we stand with submitting anything to the state? So we've submitted for it, we put in for it. What do we owe them? Not to get ourselves in a situation where maybe there's a deadline pending on maybe the next step. Where can you tell us we're at with that grant?
I'm still looking through all of the documentation or through what we can. I just recently found a source where I can get some more detail of what's expected from the other end, because I could not find anything internally to tell me anything other than that it had been granted sometime in the past. So as far as I know, that we're just on this set of lists, a set of people who are entitled to funding in 2023, but no requirement at this point that I'm aware of.
And do we need to do any engineering drawings or anything to have shovel ready for this grant?
And not at this point, I don't think. But again, I'm going to get more information as I get some direct contact with the source.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dale, on the updates. Any other questions on those updates for Dale? All right. Looks like we're ready for item number 4, and that's public comments. Please comment on non-agenda items only. If there's somebody in the public that would like to speak, you're more than welcome to. Please take a turn one at a time, raise your hand, speak in the chat, go ahead and hop on. These are non-agenda items only. You do have 3 minutes, please, as a limit to share with us, and we welcome to hear from you. Don't all speak at once. All right, we do have a comment from Melanie Nivelt, and she has mentioned that council gave the approval for temporary signs to go up for the businesses, yet council and village office do not feel they should help with this in regards to erecting the signs or purchasing the post. If council has approved and feels it's important for the businesses, then they should be supportive on all levels. Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate that. And Mary Ellen, you're more than welcome to step up, please. She would like to speak as well.
Hello, I just wanted to express my concern that my information was not communicated by the village manager. I have forwarded my letter of concern to all council members, and since a closed session may be pending, I thought that everyone needed to know what I had to say.
And that is regarding the easement letter, correct?
Yes and no. The easement letter, but my concerns are more than just that.
Okay, thank you. Any other non-agenda items, public comments, please? Step up, like I said, enter in the chat, raise your hand. Go ahead and start speaking. We welcome your comments.
Tanya, I'd like to say something.
Please.
This is Anthony Randazzo. A couple things as far as this Halloween movie. I looked at the flyers and also in the newspaper. I'm not sure why people are saying that Brandon Township Parks and Rec is not, or they didn't see it. Pardon the expression, they're blind. It's on the very top. It's in the header. I also want to point out that this has been in the talks with Fred for quite a while, as I'm a part-time Parks and Rec employee for Fred and Kara. I don't like seeing that the cost of these movies that they try to do, it costs a lot of money, which I'm not going to mention the amount, but because I care about this area, this village, I took it upon myself, well, my wife and I took it upon ourselves to purchase equipment so we could help them out. And Halloween was the very first chance that we could do this. And so that's what we're going to do. The donuts, the bonfire was taken away, which is totally understandable. Dale's trying to talk. He's muted.
I was going to say, did we lose you? Yep. Dale, you are muted.
This was included in a discussion on an agenda item. And I don't think it's appropriate.
Yes
for it to
and
be
no.
discussed.
It was Halloween hours, and then Mark did speak, so we kind of let it slide, and it's specifically not on the agenda, and that's the only reason why I am, is because it was not stated, and we kind of blended it, so it's not fair because we didn't have it on there specifically. So that's the only reason why I'm letting Tony finish, because he's almost at the end of his time anyway.
Yes. So anyway, just in conclusion, that's what this is doing. This is more so to help out. BGOIA is doing the licensing for it, and we are offering the equipment for them to provide this. So that's it. Thanks.
So we thank you for the clarification. We appreciate it. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak from the public on non-agenda items only at this time? All right, thank you very much for your comments and your questions. And we are moving on now to items from trustees. And with that, Colleen, we will start down on your end.
Just a clarification on, I think the disbursement report, we were told that the items, even though we questioned what the sign was for, we were told it was for the preservation sign. So the public comment from Melanie about the temporary signs, that was, we were told was not for the signs for the businesses, that those were paid by separate individuals. So that does not apply to the signs that we received. But I don't have anything further at this time.
All right, thank you. Mark Robinson, you're up next, please.
Right. I just have one comment. Actually, it's more of a question. The signs at the council unanimously, yeah, right. We all voted. Sorry, it's been a long day. We all voted to allow for the and we supported the local businesses to put up signs over there at M15 and Mill Street, but nothing at the time was mentioned about doing South Street. And I only bring that up because, not that I'm so much opposed, but it'd been nice if it was just brought to council and included. So, and I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Dan, please.
Yes, I'm going to just briefly, really quick, Crossman Park. Okay, I only hope that we can get through any hurdles that might be thrown out in front of us. But more importantly, we haven't talked about Crossman Park as it relates to the equipment on site. So once we're through with the with the drain project and we get it all back and nice and pristine, my recommendation to talking to many people that the equipment on that site really needs to be replaced. The old swings and the equipment that's on there is very old. So I only hope that we can keep that in the back of our mind as we finish that project, that we look toward putting some nice, fresh swing set and play structure areas in that park. That's all I have.
And I appreciate that, Dan. That was a conversation that, Dale knows as well that we tried to have this year. We were hoping to get a grant with the school and work together in order to improve a couple of the playgrounds. And unfortunately, with everything that came into play budget-wise, obviously we did as well, and the school just kind of shied away from that. So that's definitely something to keep in the forefront. So thank you for reminding us again.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have to rip it all out to get where we need to do with that drain, or I'm thinking part of it anyway. So that would be probably an opportune time to at least consider something refreshing there in that park.
Thank you. We are up to Larry.
Okay. Well, everybody knows me. I'm the Halloween house guy. So I want to wish everybody a good, happy Halloween. I think this is going to be a nice event for everybody in our community to get out and do something, because I know a lot of people are a little tired of being stuck at home. So I'm looking at this as a good, hopefully safe event for everybody. And I encourage everybody to come by, see my house. There's a lot of other people decorating too. We got a lot of nice stuff going on out there. And I want to give my appreciation in advance to both the DPW crew that I know is always very helpful getting those barricades in place, and our CERT team and everybody who comes together, including the Parks and Rec department this year with the movie, that comes together to make an event like this happen. And I hope that we might have some opportunities for maybe a few more events this year. I know the DDA is trying to see if they can get something more together, and hopefully next year we can have a better year with more events and get out there and enjoy our community.
Thank you very much. How about Pat? George?
I'm okay. I'm good.
All right. Looks like Mark Butsu, we're up to you.
I'll wrap it up with the Ortonville. This is a sign issue again, but on a really good note. The Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park signs. I know they've been up for a couple of months, but I've had a couple of neighbors and people I know that go out there. I've had nothing but really good response. They look very professional. They're readable. They're simple, and they look nice. And I just want to thank Dale and probably Bob, that did all the physical work to put them up. But they look good. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have one thing that I overlooked. I just wanted to.
Can you adjust your phone first, please, so we can hear? You're a little echoey.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put it out there if anybody had a chance to attend the MML virtual meeting. They had asked me to be a moderator for one of their segments, so it was a pleasure.
Audio.
Yeah, sorry, cutting your audio.
I'm just giving everybody
There it
the
is.
chance to take a look at the MML virtual convention that they recently held. They outreached to me to be a moderator for one of their segments, so I was pleased to do that for them. So take a chance. There's a lot of good information out there. And then I just wanted to ask Dale about the status of the approved minutes from our last meeting, about getting those all out there on Documents on Demand. And that's it.
All right. Let me quickly write that down, and then, all right. Thank you. And that leads up to me. I kind of will echo off of Larry Hayden with Halloween. We definitely appreciate CERT and their availability. We appreciate the police as well for making it a safe night. The residents are very excited. And as many of you know, the local businesses are collecting candy downtown, and it's been in the paper. It is on the social media sites for both the township and the village. And you'll also find it obviously on local social media as well. So if you're interested, please donate candies to the local businesses who are then doling that out. And have a safe and wonderful Halloween. And don't forget to attend the movie afterwards.
Excuse me, Tanya, could you just reiterate what businesses people would have to go to? The village residents, they really get hit hard in certain areas. So who's offering the candy?
Okay, I don't want to play favorites because I don't know the whole list, but I see Lisa Painter is on here and I would love for her to tell me all of them because I don't want to leave anybody out.
Okay,
am I putting you under pressure, Lisa? Are you there, Lisa? I know it's the little things as well as Hill Decor. Dale, do you remember any of the other on the list? I don't have the list in front of me.
I'm sorry, I don't.
You don't either. Anybody else remember offhand?
Courtney looks like she might.
Yay, Courtney. Thank you. Oh, wait.
It's the little
It's
things.
posted in our chat now.
Yep.
Hill Decor, Mabelina's, and I think
Papa
that might be
Bella's.
it. Papa Bella's, yes.
Papa Bella's. Thank you, Shelby.
You can basically drop off at any of the downtown businesses and they'll make sure that it gets to where it needs to go.
Right. And they'll guide you. And I was just going to say, and Mabelina's popped up there. I think you said that, Courtney. Yeah, just keep in mind, everybody has varied hours and some are open earlier and later. And I'm sure it'll fit your schedule to drop something off downtown. Like Courtney said, if they're not open, they'll tell you who is. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. And a big thank you to all the businesses for doing that since we were unable to do that this year.
And
Definitely.
if anybody's not able to get any Halloween candy, we can go see Larry. Is that correct?
Well, at least you'll
What's
see a
your
nice
address,
display
Lou?
to come by.
So
Take
it
pictures. They're free.
looks like we are looking to entertain a motion to adjourn at this point.
This is Trustee Robinson. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Hayden, support.
All right. Any other questions, discussion on our motion? Courtney, would you mind, please?
All in favor?
Unmute, Courtney.
Aye.
He's muted.
Courtney, unmute. There you
The
go.
other computer, the other one.
All in favor cannot be done on a virtual meeting. George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Gornica,
Yes.
Butsu,
Yes.
Ashman.
With 4 minutes to spare, yes.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Mark Butsu, that pause was way too long. Everybody have a fabulous night and thank you for your input and we appreciate all of our wonderful residents in attendance. Take care.
All right, good night, everybody.